right. Sometimes let's sing a dance since we started the live. You are live. Welcome to day 2 of the bLU Talks to Amplify Your Message. I am joined by my host today, Stacey Lynn Corlett. Is that how you say your name?
Yes.
Oh, I said it correctly. Yay! Okay. So for those who don't know really what the job of my co-host is just imagine me, my co-host, and whoever our guest is just sitting in this room together having a conversation. And if you're in the business world, you know that some of the most fun, most brilliant conversations are those off the cuff, see what happens in the moment kind of conversations. It's also the time when you shut off the camera and you just have those conversations either before or after you're being recorded that are the most fun. So that's really what I want this to be. So what usually happens, Stacey, is I want to know just a little bit about you, probably 1 or 2 sentences. Just give us an idea of who you are and where you're coming from so that when you do feel inspired and curious to ask your questions, we get an understanding of where you're coming from so that it's not just completely out of context for people. So if you could introduce yourself the way that you like to be introduced, tell us a little bit about you, where you're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, actually. I'm Stacey Lynn Corlett, and I am a soul weaver. So what I do is I help people reclaim those lost fragments of self that are hidden in the darkness of their soul. So by shining the light of truth on their pain and their suffering that's holding them back, I help them release that darkness so they can really come back home to themselves. Because to me, it's all about helping the client come back home to themselves and release any of the pain or the trauma that is preventing them from stepping into the truth of who they are. And so I do that through a variety of different healing modalities. So I am a Reiki master. I use divine light healing frequencies. I am a spinal energetics practitioner, and that works through the central nervous system to help the body release and unwind trauma. And I'm a meditation and breath work facilitator. I also do light language to activate keys and codes. And I am a spiritual transformational life coach. So it's been quite a journey for me these past three and a half years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I love that. Okay, we need to talk more behind the scenes. Just there's so many parallels there. I think we could have a lot of fun. So
right. I just wanted to say, so when I'm looking for a soul-aligned client, it's really anybody who is not living in their truth and who is tired of not living in their truth because they're stuck in a loop and they just can't move forward because they're repeating those same patterns and behaviors. And they're really just ready to do the deep dive journey back to self.
Definitely. And for those who don't know, I'm Laura Lake. You can see it in my name there. I talk about courageous connection, and it is closely related to that. Is I want to get people to understand that old version of them who have been through the struggle, to see them, hear them, understand them, so that you can gain clarity so that when you do share your story, you now take all those 50 different titles and tools that we have, and you have one streamlined emotional journey that ties them all together. And you can only find that by looking and going within. So I love that we have this context behind it. So now we're going to bring on our guest. And as long as Debbie can hear us and see us, she can give us a thumbs up because you never know what's happening behind the scenes. And then I'll bring them to stage. Hi, Debbie.
Hi. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm like, well, afternoon here, morning over there.
Yes. Hello. We'll just start. Hello. Good morning.
Hello. That's good.
We've been having some fun this week and every week with one of my favorite questions to start. Okay. I don't think you've heard this one yet.
No.
It is if somebody.
I'm nervous now.
You know it now?
I'm nervous now. I'm like, oh my God, on the spot.
Don't worry about it. It's just remember, we're having fun. Okay. And it'll change tomorrow. It'll change this afternoon. It doesn't really matter. Okay. So what would 3 words be that you would love other people to use to describe you?
Oh, let me see. Like, I'm going to start with the joking ones like fit, sassy, sexy. I'll go with those first of all. Okay. But if I'm going to go in real life, then maybe those days might have gone. So what would I want people to do? Fun, like fun, interesting, and unforgettable.
Ooh, okay. So now we need to know why those words. Fun, interesting,
Okay.
unforgettable. I love that one.
Unforgettable, yeah, for whatever reasons. Because so fun is because why not? You know, why would we not have fun? Life is too serious, it's too short. You know, there's always stuff going on. There's never going to be a day in your life that there isn't stuff going on. Okay. And you can focus on the stuff, or you can go, okay, where's the gold in the moment? So fun is, I will always be the person who tells jokes at bad times, and will have humor when I shouldn't have. Thank you, Susan. She said I'm
I think
unforgettable.
so.
And we'll chuck in the jokes at the bad times and stuff like that. But so fun is one. What was my second one? I've forgotten it now.
Interesting.
Interesting. Oh, I'm clearly not even interested in myself. Like, I can't remember. So interesting would be that, yeah, I don't want to be a fluff, you know.
Yes.
I'm blonde now. And I do remember there being a fancy dress thing that we were doing at work, and I didn't know who to dress up as. And one of the team leaders said, "Who's blonde and bubbly?" And I was like, "Oh, is that how you see me? You don't actually see me as a person who's anything more than this surface butterfly type thing." And then unforgettable, because I want people to remember me, for whether they remember me for good or for bad, but just I want to have made a difference in your life.
Yes.
If I've made you laugh, that's great. If I've made you cry, maybe be forgettable, unless it's for the good reasons. But yeah, unforgettable, because, you know, we're all here to do something. We're all here. So I really like helping people. I know that sounds a bit lame, but I really do like helping people. So I want to be like the person that when you're really stuck on something, whether in your life or your business, you go, let me call Debbie. She's the person who's going to help me.
Oh,
It's beautiful.
So,
Yeah.
no, I love
like
all
when
of it. I get
like when you run out of wine or something like that, be like, call Debbie. She's usually got plenty.
I get the whole being pigeonholed into a descriptive box like blonde and bubbly.
Yeah.
Kind of get the same thing. It's like the crazy redhead. Well, I'm not.
I am a redhead. Like before I went grey, obviously underneath here, like I am a redhead. So to be even classed as blonde, I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. But yeah. So even with the redhead, like the bullying that we would have gone through as kids for that, insane.
Yup. The
But
kick a redhead day.
Sorry.
Oh my God.
What if you shifted that perspective for a second? And
which one?
The blonde and bubbly. Because when you were describing that, and I'm looking at you and I'm feeling your energy, I can totally see why people see you like that, because you bring lots of light into the room.
Okay.
So maybe that's what they're amplifying in those words, right? The fact that you bring the light where maybe
but I don't know if you had this program there. We ended up going as Ab Fab. So I went as Patsy out of Ab Fab. So that's not blonde and bubbly of the type that I wanted to be with a fancy dress. So she's just like an old drunk, basically. We should probably have people really see me. But no, actually, Stacey, I do love that. I do love that. This is a while back. I'm good now. I sit in my own skin. Like probably Laura would even see we were together at the weekend at the boot camp, but the difference of like 6 months ago when I was on the boot camp to this time, I felt like I was like two different people.
Yes.
So
that's one of my favorite parts of going to the boot camp every time it goes. That was my 6th one. And to watch people, even if they just attend the boot camp and nothing else, watching them grow from each time, it's so magical. I
think it was like the first time I come from a very salesy background, and I've worked with like some quite hardcore coaches, you know, that were like selling from the stage, and it's all about the sale, it's all about that conversion. So when I was coaching on the bootcamp the first time, I could get my head around the fact that people just being nice and not expecting anything out of it. I was like really panicking. What's happening? Why am I meant to be selling? Am I meant to be doing this? And so, you know, like 6 months have passed, and I work very differently to how I did a year and a half ago. I kind of like had a bit of a burnout a year and a half ago and was working in a really harsh way. I mean, maybe we'll share some of that later, actually, because it's quite interesting to what I'm doing now. And so I was still in that process of actually getting my head around how to work differently and how not to all be all about the money and actually about the service. Because with bLU Talks, it tends to be more about the service than it is about the money. Are you the right fit? Are you the right person? Is this right for you right now type thing?
Yeah.
Whereas the coaches that I've worked with previous, both American and English, you know, big like 40 million sales and stuff like that, were like, so what? Put it on a card, you know, don't worry about it. Just pay the money and then we'll pretend to look after you after that.
Right. I agree. They're within the bLU Talks itself, Corey has really created a culture and community of personal integrity with regards to your and the impact that you want to have. And it's more about being in alignment with the that you're calling in, and which means you can say no to those who are not in alignment, because you know that you're not going to be able to serve them in the way that they need to be served. And it's also not going to serve you, right? And the abilities, talents, and gifts that you bring to the table. So there really is that conscious shift that's been happening. And I agree with you. I've had lots of issues with that salesy, right? Type energy that I think some of the coaches or entrepreneurs who are rooted in the old paradigms kind of still bring to the table when we're in different networking groups and things like that. And it's hard when you're not in that energy and you're trying to bring a new perspective, a higher perspective.
No, it wasn't hard for me. I'll tell you why, because I've been selling since I was about, like, I can remember being 5 years old and picking up the telephone, and my dad's business partner, if you picked up the phone and said hello, he'd be like, well, that wasn't right, was it? Put it back down. And then we'd pick up the phone and say, hello, 52578, how can I help you? So that's like from, like, I remember the house, we were there until I was 10 years old, and that's how you answered the phone. It was really normal in my house for my dad sold lots of things, anything, everything. It was really normal to come home and the sofa be gone and somebody sawing the leg off another one to get it through the window, so it didn't really fit. When I was about 8 years old, I came home and somebody was walking out the front door with our TV, and that was like newspaper advertising, you know, like back in the day. I'm a little bit ancient, and my dad used to sell cars, but if people didn't have the money for the cars, he'd maybe take a part exchange or something else. So this day, our TV was gone, and when I went into the lounge, there was another TV there. So I thought, oh, great, knock, knock, knock on the door. Someone else has come to buy that TV. We had 12 TVs. And my mum went, Deb, can you show them how to use the TV? I've never seen it before in my life, right? She was like, can you show them how to use the TV? She said, I don't watch TV. And I'm like, you liar. You do watch TV. She's just never seen it before. So then, obviously, it was just on, off, and 4 buttons. It was fairly easy. And then there used to be like a back aerial that was behind. You had to flick it between 2 aerials. So I just had to, I used to go, oh, do you know what? I don't watch much either. So literally all 12 TVs were gone and sold, and it just was normal. So for me to then be in with really salesy coaches, it was normal. What's not normal is for me to come out of that arena and, like you say, come from a higher level to go, I'm just here and we're just all having a great time. And if people are interested in a product, they're interested in a product. And if they're not, they're not. That's what it's taken me 18 months to kind of learn how to do that.
Little disclaimer here. Nobody has been paid to promote.
Yeah,
exactly. No, we have not. We're doing it out of our...
No, but not just in bLU Talks. I mean, like in my business, in my life and stuff like that. So it's taken me 18 months to kind of just stop. You know, like I have a spiritual coach, and she's like, just stop. And I was like, what do you mean just stop? She's like, just stop. You know, you're living a life that's not yours. You want to burn yourself out because you're pretending to be something that you're not. You're living this molded life of what somebody else wants you to be.
Yes.
And so I said, well, what do I do? She said, do nothing. And I'd phone her and say, what does nothing look like? What do I do for nothing? Do I do YouTube? Do I meditate? And she's like, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing, just pop it. And she said, how does that feel? And I was like, yeah, it's all right. So just keep doing that then. Because I wanted a list of what nothing looked like. I needed to know what nothing looked like. That's how controlled I was.
And that's how you have to step into when you're in that transition. you have to be willing to step into the uncomfortableness of the nothingness, right? So that you can allow the new to reorganize and drop in. And that is, interesting, because I've had this conversation with a couple people in the last few days, and they don't want to be in that space. It's like the pull to go back, right?
It's more a comfort zone. It's a comfort zone for me.
Yes. And then there's that resistance, and there's that internal fight. It's like a push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, until you're willing to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Something that we hear a lot these days, and allow the surrender and just do nothing. Maybe be human, right? Just be human and kind of let go of all
I
of
took 6 weeks out. In the end, I took 6 weeks out. I was training for a bike ride. So she's like, go ride your bike, which took up hours and go to spin classes. And then I really just potted. But what was so interesting was I could not sell. I couldn't get new clients for love nor money. It just didn't happen. And I was like, I've sold my whole life when I'm trying to get new clients. I just couldn't get them. They just, whether there was like some sort of desperation coming off of me because I panicked, whether there was something, whether, as my friend Sheena says, that Archangel Michael stopped it, and that's that, because you wouldn't listen, we've stopped it, whatever you believe. But I could not actually run my business. So I had no choice but to stop, because there was nothing. There was literally nothing. And she, and I had some money. So I was like, okay, well, I have no other choice. What else am I going to do? I might as well go with the flow, because what I'm normally doing isn't working.
Well, and I think it's normal. I think when we shift our identity and we don't have clarity on that identity, if we don't know who we are, then how can we call in the clients that we're trying to call in? So when you're in that space of trying to reorganize your sense of self based on your new soul truth, then you're not able to pull in something that you're not clear about in the first.
No, I didn't know what was on the other side. I had no idea what was on the other side. I didn't really have I call myself woo curious. So I'm like always really curious about all the other different things that are in the world, but don't really understand. So I don't really understand Reiki. I don't really understand spirituality or stuff like that. So I'm very curious about it, but I've never really kind of gone into it or learned or anything like that. So it was a learning curve, but I feel like now I'm kind of in the right place. I'm like in my skin. I can look back at videos and kind of lives and stuff that I did before, and the feedback that I had, people were saying to me, oh, she looked exhausted all the time, you looked tired, because I wasn't kind to myself. I was kind to my clients. It was mean to me, really mean to me. For my clients, I was like, do everything and be everything. And I was a business consultant, so I was in their businesses fixing it, and didn't actually fix the whole person, which maybe wasn't the best thing. But I was mean to me. I didn't give myself any time. I didn't give myself any kindness. Just didn't think I needed it.
The aspect of self-love. So I believe that we can't heal in others what we haven't healed in ourselves. So you said not fixing the whole client, right? And I believe that might be rooted in the fact that you needed to deal with yourself first and come to a place of healing within yourself to be able to meet the resonance of that in your client and take them where they need to go. You and I resonate on a very deep level because I came from teaching. I taught for 18 and a half years, and then I came into this realm of energy healing and coaching and all of that. I've always been spiritual, but I really had to find my identity. And for a long time, I was struggling because things weren't happening because I was not clear. I was still in the midst of a sandstorm trying to figure out who I was. And so it's taken me longer than you. So it's taken me 3 years to get there, but I understand the struggle of that and being in the unknown and really trying to get through the layers to get to the truth of who you are and what your why is and your purpose and why you're here. And then the next step is owning it, right?
Yeah. So Toby, you had talked about this change that has happened with you in the last 6 months. Can you tell us about that through the lens of what it is that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I can actually, because So in my coach, I have a couple of different roles. So coaching is my role that I've had for like 25 years. And I was a good coach in terms of like all about the money, was all about, and everything was only really about the money, because I was always brought up that there was never enough money. So in that terms, and so for me, it was all about the money. And then what I used to do is I would work really hard, you know, like 7 a.m. till 10 at night. I only ever had Sundays off, and even then sometimes not. And I would be very harsh, but what I found is, because I started to earn the really good money, was that you self-soothe. So I would be like, I need a luxury holiday because I need to soothe myself from this miserable life that I'm creating. And I didn't know this at the time. I thought I was actually living their life. I was having a great time, going to Ibiza, going on yachts, going on holiday, but I craved the holiday all the time, constantly craving this like soothingness to go, if I do this, you know, I have this luxury holiday in Jamaica, it's great. But I ended up working in Jamaica. I ended up having clients like calling me and taking Zoom calls and stuff in Jamaica, even when I was on a different time zone in really limited. And actually, that's when it all cracked there, was I sacked them off. I was like fired one of them when this is not working for me. She told me I was not available enough, and I sat in the grill and people are walking around in bikinis and I'm on a Zoom call in the morning, and she told me I wasn't available enough. And I was like, this is really not working out. This is not who I want to be. This is not how I want to be. And so that's where it kind of changed there. So coming forward now to how I work now is that I work now with people who mainly solopreneurs, solo business people. Mm-hmm. They've had an idea, they've had a dream, and they're really doing well on it. They're absolutely killing it. But all of a sudden they're killing it so well that it's now killing them. They've got to that stage where they literally have no time. I know, Laura, it's a good tagline, isn't it?
Like over and over.
Yeah. Where they can't sleep, there's not enough time, they can't take on more clients, totally overwhelmed. And so rather than being a coach who goes, oh, come to my masterclass and it's this, I'm more of a bridge or a gateway to say, look, I understand, because I've done this myself. I've been that person that woke up at 3 a.m. I understand where your next steps are and how you're going to grow your business and who you need to be able to scale that business and get your life back and get the joy and the passion back in your business that you started with. They're successful. They know what they're doing. They don't need me to tell them how to do that, but they do need me to tell them how to get out of that rut. So it's sort of like a bottleneck. You know, I need to pop the cork for them and say, right, okay, come on out of here and spread out. So, you know, we go, where's the £10 task, $10 task, maybe you call them. So like minimum wage here is around about 10, 11. So we call them a £10 task. What can we do? Where can we put the £10 task that you're still doing? I have a client who's in food. You know, he does beautiful, like Gray's food and spreads and bins and really stuff. But I remember him saying to me a couple of months ago, Deb, I just spent 4 hours washing up. And I'm like, oh. And he's like, you were here on my shoulder, because 4 hours washing up is 40 quid. Doesn't have any time in his business to grow the business or go and recruit a team or whatever. So I'm there. That's the spot that I kind of really focus on at the moment, because I've done it myself. You know, I've literally done it myself. I've had the issue of understanding that you have to stop working in your business and start working on your business. And I learned the very, very hard way by smashing up my leg as a hairdresser and not being able to run my own business. Ooh. So I don't advocate for anybody to learn it that way, but it was a lesson that I learned. And you're always told that. I think my ego was so massive that I was the only person who could stand behind the chair. I was the only person who cut these people's hair, blah, blah, blah. Until I'm in the hospital. Yeah, I'm the only person who can do this. You know, I'm master chef. And you know what happened is I got hit by a car. Should have died, didn't die. All good. Was in the hospital pretty euphoric with the fact that I didn't die. But when my manager came in, she was only part-time. I said to her, let my clients know that I'll be back in 3 weeks. And she was like, 3 weeks? And looked at my leg in a cage. No. And I was like, okay, say 4. Because I was terrified. I was terrified that I would lose my business. Reality, do you know what happened? Is they just went to her. And I didn't go back to hairdressing for 6 months. And even then I couldn't walk properly. I didn't walk for 6 months. So I had to go. And my son was in a gym. Right? So I don't fit into my life at all 12 years ago. I don't fit into it at all. I don't fit into the gym. I don't fit into the salon. So I was like, okay, I need to reinvent myself. And so I reinvented myself to go, I will do all the other stuff. I will do the marketing. I'll do the accounting. I'll do the website. I'll do that. And guess what? We made more money. More money than before. Lots more money. And I was the person who answered the phone. So crazily, I had a 16-year-old apprentice answering the phone, or my son was working, he wouldn't answer a phone, he refused.
Yep.
Or I'd have a stylist would be answering the phone because it was a really small salon, and she'd be like, yeah, right, okay, scribble back to her client. So of course that was never going to work.
No.
So when I was answering the phone, I couldn't go anywhere. I had to just sit in the chair because I couldn't move. And I would be very much like, okay, yeah, got an appointment. Are you not due for a colour? Are you not due for this? And they'd be like, yeah, but you probably can't fit me in short notice. So I could take that call from a £40 call to a £120 call.
Yep.
So, you know, in hindsight, you think, God, that's just craziness. So taking that leap to actually not be the person in the business, because when you started on your own, that's who you are. To then go, let me work on the business and let everybody else do some of the tasks. Don't get me wrong, I've tried to one-legged cut someone's hair because we had a big barber's chair and I thought I could lean on it. And they used to just put me in a taxi and send me home. I'd go in and wash my hair, blow dry it, put me in a taxi and send me home, because that wasn't my life anymore. That wasn't where I was meant to be anymore. 2.5 years after that, I had a 10-room beauty spa with a jacuzzi and a mud resort, 10 treatment rooms, a photo studio. We took 444,000 in 8 months. So we've gone from 75 to 444,000. Had I still been stood behind the chair, never would have happened. Mm. Never in a million years would that have happened. There was a lot of coupons and Groupon and stuff in that, and serviced, but there was a whole marketing plan and everything to go. So that actually became too overwhelming, and I sold it because I had to have another operation, and the thought of running my business and having another operation was just so overwhelming for me. I was like, no, because it was very, very hands-on, you know. Yeah. Like the jacuzzi overflowed all the time, so we're ever mopping up, and it was very physical in that term. So I sold it to someone else and stayed a consultant. So bring that to now I want to help people so they don't have to go through what I went through. They don't have to go through all that misery. I have a fantastic network of anyone that you could want. In the last 18 months, I've made more friends than I know what to do. So anything that you want in your business, I will know somebody that does it. So I have this coaching business where I will be that bridge to take you into the growth cycle, get you with a 12-month growth cycle, and be able to facilitate the people that you need.
I love that.
So it's very much more service based, and it's not about the money. And I work one-to-one. So I don't work one-to-many because that is about the money. I work one-to-one. So I'm going to hold your hand for 12 months to go through this growth cycle, get you the key people that you need, and then you can go on and do whatever you want to do for the next 5 years.
So Debbie, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you learned for yourself throughout this whole transformational period? Because you were able to actually bring it to the level of transformation, like, right? To success.
So the shocker is that I'm an introvert. I'm actually an introvert, extrovert. I'm not an extrovert all the time. I don't need to be on show. I would have been the party person, whatever needed a party, that would be me. When I was training for India last year, so I had quite a lot of early morning cycle rides, and you know, going riding for like 40 miles or whatever is quite meditative as well. It's quite good for your brain. I'll just put a podcast on and learn about Mo Gauda or whoever. But I had a lot of nights where I stayed in on a Saturday night. I gave at festivals, I gave at barbecues because we were cycling early on the Sunday morning. And I found that I really loved it. I loved the peace. I loved the quiet. Whereas never before have I been able to just kind of crave that meditation. I can only meditate for 10 minutes. Okay, so don't get too excited. 10 minutes is my max. Or I'll fall asleep. But I actively go and look for music that is no more than 15 minutes. Otherwise I get really freaked out that it might trick me into staying on longer. But the fact that I like meditating, I kind of crave that. I know when I'm getting to a stage where the anxiety is creeping back in, or I'm not quite sure what to do, that I can go and just do some breathing. You know, for me, it's just breathing, 10 minutes, clear my mind, stop the world, and then come back to it. If I had a difficult conversation that I needed to do, difficult call or something, that's what I would do 10 minutes before I would ground. Is it called grounding yourself? I told you I'm not good on this stuff. I just do what works for me as such. And so the fact that I'm quite introverted and I don't, you know, I used to dance across the road. There's a community centre on the other side of the road, and if I could hear the music, I'd be like the Pied Piper. Off I go. Now I come home when the music starts because I just don't need that chaos and that overwhelm that I had before. I'm actually quite happier to just be, which is mad for me. for my friends.
Mhm.
Well, my ex-friends, really. Some of those went by the wayside. It's what happens, isn't it?
It definitely what happens. I've been finding the same thing. Like, we talk about it a lot during the boot camp and in the Blue Talks community, where we grow based on whatever we've done, whether it was a book or on a stage or doing the boot camp or coaching or whatever it is. But then we don't even recognize that old version of us. And every time there's this new rendition, it feels like we're shedding all of those people who don't align, which feels crazy at the beginning, but then we settle into it and it feels more and more like home.
And I think I used to take on everyone's drama. So I was, because I'm such a fixer, so I would fix everything. But I'm also like, I take on everyone's feelings as well. So I've had to kind of like really bring myself out of that, of going like, you know, logically, I know that's their feeling. And by me taking them, I'm not halving them, I'm just doubling them. I know all that, but I still would. You know, my friend got cancer. I'm devastated for her.
Yeah.
But too much, you know, too much really is such. So it's very, and some of the thing is like, since this happened in like May, June of last year, I've met some amazing people, like absolutely amazing people. And so it wasn't I really got rid of the other friends. It's just I made new ones that were like,
Yeah.
just amazing. I can't even, they're just nice and they're good and they're not trying to sell me stuff and they're not trying to get me to do stuff that I don't want to do. They're just lovely and they're really happy with themselves and stuff like that. And really interesting. I do a podcast. And my podcast is called Whatever It Takes, When Life Gives You Lemons, Make Lemonade. I did recorded 2 yesterday that were like astonishing. So the people's stories, and I'm a real curious cat anyway. I'm always like, some call it nosy, I'll call it curious. But I'm always so interested in other people's lives and what they've gone through. Just because I've been through something, it doesn't make me anything special. I just did what I felt everybody else would do, and I've been told that's not always the case. So even when I'm meeting people on the podcast, it's just inspiring people. So I haven't consciously left the other people, but what I've done is I've consciously left some of the venues that I would see those people at. So some of them might have been just pub friends, and some of them want to just like go out and get drunk and dance, and that's how they let their steam up, and that's absolutely fine, just not for me anymore.
No.
Right. And I feel that once we start to honor ourselves and our truth and our energy and all of that, and go inward, we open ourselves up to pulling in people who are more aligned with who we are. And then we can shift back and just hold perspective for those who might be in our life, who are in a different phase of their journey, you know, so they might not be where we're at, but they're just where they need to be at that moment. So necessarily, like you were saying, mean that they're completely gone, but maybe they've just kind of faded into the background for a little bit, and who knows, right, as they continue to do the work. And
yeah, I mean, they're not people that I don't like, you know, this is going to go out on public, so it's not people that I don't like, it's just I'm not in those places. And at the moment we're so busy, like we just did the boot camp this weekend, so you know I'm on UK time, so those boot camps finished really late. It were quite late nights, so I didn't go to the pub. There actually was an ABBA tribute band on Saturday night, which I would normally love.
Fun.
But a sing along, you know, as such. And my son went over and he's like, "Oh, you're missing ABBA," and I was like, "Yeah, but there was another person who used to go, and he was a boy and he knew all the words." And so I'd be like, what's going on here? He knew all the words, but he wasn't there, and so I didn't really have my singing buddy. He wasn't a drinking buddy, he was a singing buddy. So I don't know, I just feel happy. When I'm not happy is when I'm trying to make something and I want to default back into the old way, because I knew what to do anything in that way. That was my comfort zone. So to work in that chaotic, busy burnout zone, I think probably around about January, February time, I really battled with myself, because I was like, if I just turn myself back into that person, then I'll be successful and I'll be able to do what I did before. Whereas I don't know how to do it the easy way, like with ease. I don't know how to do that, and it doesn't feel comfortable, and I don't understand how to how to kind of be that salesperson without putting myself back to that other person.
Mhm.
But now I suppose we're in October, maybe that other person doesn't really exist, and I'm a hybrid of the both. so I've got a little bit that one and a little bit this one. And then now I can serve my clients how I want to serve them.
Right.
So what
and
would
take
your
them out of that situation.
So what would your key message be now that all of these evolutions are continuing to happen? What would the core message be that you're trying to share with the world now?
Well, I could go back to Sheena and go, you were right and I was wrong, but that's not fair. She shouldn't listen to this. And she'll go, yeah, I know I was right. I knew that all along. Very much so. So my core message, gosh, that's deep.
I like
that. No, do you know what? It's not deep, actually. It's really easy. It's like, it doesn't have to be like that. Business doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. That's different. And trying new things is the thing, but it doesn't have to be stressed. I'm stressed. I'm so stressed. That doesn't have to be how your business runs, because if you've got to 6 figures, you're doing really well. All you just don't know how to do is to be in the next stage, to get into the next field. That's all. You've outgrown your field that you're in, and there's a big one here that's got loads of grass and abundance and like trees, and it's beautiful in this field. And this one is now like you've eaten all the grass and it's all chewed up and is bare. And somehow you've got to work out how to get across this river that you don't know how to get across. So as soon as you get, because you've got fresh people, fresh leads, and you get your life back. And so actually the thing that you were killing, the big picture of the thing that you were doing, is still possible, but you just need some help. And if you just ask for the help or reach out for the help, but it's hard, if you're solopreneur, I hate that word, but if you are a solo business owner, okay, you maybe have never recruited before, you've never taken on stuff, don't know how to do it. If you hit the VAT threshold, we have VAT here at 75,000. If you hit that, you don't know how to do it. How do you raise your prices to cover that? How do you outsource your marketing? Because your marketing, that needs to be done. How do you outsource your accounting? Because now you've got enough cash flow in the business to pay people to do the stuff that you're rubbish at. I heard somebody say the other day that we're so told to focus on the things that we're not good at, that we should really focus on the stuff we're not good at. And I think her name is Tony Largan. She's a big speaker. And what happens with that is, if you focus on the stuff you're not good at, well, how are you going to feel good about yourself if you're always looking at the stuff you're rubbish at? So she was like, well, why don't we just focus on the stuff we're good at and outsource the other damn stuff? And I was like, yes,
That's what I started
just do that. Yeah, let's just do that.
I know one of my biggest pain points is I will easily spend hours on those free image websites to try to find the right photo for whatever it is I'm thinking. So I hired my daughter. I was like, look, you need a cell phone because we're going to be crazy for the next few months, moving 4 times. And I need to know where you are. So in return, I need you to do some things for me in my business that I get caught up. It'll take you 15 minutes, but it could take me 3 to 5 hours.
It's a proper time bandit for you. And how does it feel knowing that she's going to go and find the image? She gets you. She understands you.
It's just such a relief. She's been a part of my business since she was 4. So she's come to the networking events. We talked about handing out business cards yesterday. She started out like that. I was like, no, that's not how you network. So thankfully, she's been a part of that conversation and can now find things much easier than I can. And I'm perfectly okay with letting her do it and paying her.
Like things like Canva. For me, I've got friends that love Canva. The image, I can't bear it. I get in there and I just want to die there and then. I just want to explode my laptop up because I get so frustrated with it to go, and this doesn't move and this type thing, and it just isn't where my mind goes. I work on personality types of where you are, what speed you are. I'm a very fast-paced person, even when I'm trying to be a little bit more holistic and a little bit still fast. I'm like, I can understand Corey word for word, and when other people are going, how fast is he? So I'm still fast-paced. So some of the smaller stuff that needs the time is just not my natural place to be. And don't get me wrong, I've had tech jobs and I've made myself do the tech, but I make myself do the tech because the result that I'll get. So sometimes, from my personality type, which I call a spade, is that you're very results orientated rather than people orientated. So I will do whatever I need to do to win. well, that's my old person, but I would do whatever I needed to win. So if I needed to learn tech to win, then I would do it because it served a purpose. I wouldn't just learn tech for the sake of it. Whereas somebody who's more analytical, which is what we call a club, I work on a pack of cards, like I call a club somebody that's more analytical. This is easy to remember, you know, cards like a club, spade, heart, and a diamond. So your club is more analytical. They want facts, figures, procedures, processes, but can't make a decision because they need to know that all that's right before they make a decision. I will make a decision fast based on me. And kind of, so I need the analytical person to slow me down, tell me all the things that's going to go wrong, which is my husband does this to me, all the things that's going to go wrong. So at least I've thought of all those things because I'm like, no, it's fine. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. But he will tend to check some of the stuff. And then the other two personalities is obviously you've got your heart. Your heart wants everybody to do well. They're really, really, they're really motivated by relationships, but they want everybody. They don't like to miss out on anything, but everyone has to do the same thing. And then you've got your diamond, which is top of your shop luxury person, wants all the sparkle, wants to be on stage, wants the accolades. So I'm moving towards the diamond, but not in a selfish way. But yeah, I do want to be on the stage. I do want to be the person that's up there talking because I want to be the honey and not be the bee.
Mm-hmm. Now, we have about 3 or 4 minutes left. I do want to touch on that part. I know that you're getting involved on the stages and potentially books. Like, what is your favorite way to share your message?
I think probably on a webinar where you've got enough people to come on and give them some education, or on the stage, just talking. You know, I can talk for if I can talk for a living. Yep. That's heaven, isn't it? Because I don't shut up. I always think if my legs don't work, then my gob still will. So that's the way I have to go.
I definitely do that. Stacey, are you the same type of person where you could just be thrown on a stage and just have fun with it?
Yes.
But writing the chapter for the book was painful. Painful. Oh my goodness. That took me weeks to write one chapter for the book because that's for me getting out of my head onto paper. I think it's because I'm not thinking, but somebody was when I was doing my NLP last year, there was a girl and she literally could take dictation really fast, and she said it's not that you don't have the processes, it's that your brain is so fast you can't write it quick enough.
No.
And then so I get frustrated. Yeah. Or I'm frustrated because I'm trying to type it and I'm already on something different, like my brain's miles away. So when I was trying to do my essay for the NLP, I spoke it into Zoom. Spoke it into Zoom, got it transcribed, and then sent it in, and they were like, it's a very you essay because I spoke it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful strategy, especially if you tend to get distracted. Or the other thing is you like to meditate. So if you feel like you're all in your head and you're sitting there and you're like, I don't know where to start because you have all of these ideas. One of the strategies I use before I'm writing is I go into meditation. So then I just calm.
The writing just will not, you know, if you see my text messages, they're like gobbledygook. My friends have to translate it because I don't have the patience. Or I send back okay. So they send me this really long message and I send okay. And then and they really moan at me. So then I sit there for ages thinking, well, what's another answer apart from okay? I don't understand what else. So I spend longer trying to think of something else to put. And because I'm just like, okay, kind of answers everything. So I just send that in the end. I probably looked at it for about 3-4 minutes to decide on something different as such, because I just can't be bothered to write it. Voice notes for me are heaven.
I love voice notes.
Yeah, voice notes I can do. They're brilliant.
So Debbie, where can we find you and what is your favorite way of communicating?
So my favorite way of communicating is speaking. I will always want to hop on a call with you. Okay. So, you know, if you're so you can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on my website, debbiebryan.com, and there's a personality quiz on there. If anybody's interested, just download it and it'll give you some ideas of what your personality is. Well, we know that Laura's a diamond and I think Stacey's a heart. But hey, do it and see if you can prove me wrong.
Oh, yeah. Bryan.com.
I can see it when I walk in a room. Yeah, debbiebryan.com. When I walk in a room, I know who my people are, literally. And that's good when you're speaking, to be honest. You can find me there, but it will always be, let's just pick up the phone and have a call. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. On a Zoom, on a call, because that's the value of you being able to tell me what it is that you're stuck with, where you need the help, and how I can help you. And if I can't help you, then I have this big network of people who somebody in there will be able to help you. So you're never going to lose out on a call. You're either going to work with me or you're going to work with someone I trust.
Yeah. And I just saw that on your website, you have the As Seen On banner.
Yes.
Which made me so excited when I saw it. I was like, yes.
As Seen On banner. And then I'm speaking in Oxford next week as well. And then I've got a magazine article coming out this week. So you'll find me on Queens in Business magazine. I think I'm on Global Woman in a couple of weeks' time as well. But I get someone to write those articles for me. I dictate it and they write it. Still not me writing it. Is that so?
I also see your book, Habits of Successful People, #1 bestseller.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yay.
And that was difficult for me to write, but I wrote it and it's good. Yeah, it just goes through all the different people. But I think, like, for me, even the stuff I struggle with, I don't believe in the word no. I just think if someone says no to me, I'm asking the wrong person. So I can't say no to anything myself, because I'm like, okay, you're just doing it the wrong way. If I know there's a yes, I'll go and find the yes. There's such, so, which is like, I don't know. Maybe that's just why I'm a bit pig-headed, but it's not that I don't believe in the word no. For, like, you could say no, but it just be it's a no for you. It doesn't mean to say it's a no for somebody else. I'll go and find the person that's a yes for.
Right.
So rather than sounding a bit creepy there.
Debbie, I love how you're living your truth in all aspects of this journey. Yeah. And you're really giving testimony to the fact that once you commit yourself to step into that new truth, that the little tests that will come up for you, test your commitment to yourself and what is really in alignment with you or not. And that's even for you hiring things out, or for you saying, the writing is not for me. I can't write it out. I get too distracted. I'm going to use a voice memo. So even those little things are where you are being asked to, well, what's really in alignment for me? What is my health? Is this something I really want to do? Is this right? Is this serving my energy? Is this serving my passion in the best way? And so I feel like that was the underlying message that you brought to this conversation, which is so important for people to know, that that's where the uncomfortableness comes when we step into the unknown, because we've committed ourselves to this path, to this higher level being, this next level of us, the person we want to become. And so we're going to be given those little tests along the way to see if we can kind of call in, instead of just reverting back to the old, call in that commitment to self, that commitment to this journey, to who the vision we see ourselves as, and what is in alignment with that vision or not, what needs to shift in order for me to stay in alignment with that vision. And I just want to thank you, because I've been listening to you this whole time, and you really live your message. So that's very powerful and inspiring for me in this conversation, and I'm sure for anybody who watches this episode as well. So thank you.
So I just want to thank you, Debbie, for joining us today. We are running a couple minutes over, so I'm trying to just move it on. I loved getting to know you a little bit more, not just as a coach at the Experts Bootcamp. So this was absolutely lovely. So great to see you.
Thank you. I'm so I'm just so happy that that you let me come on and just talk about the new me.
The new you.
What's the old me? So the new me. The new me. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, Debbie.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Have a great day.
You too. Okay, Deb, I just want to double check that you can hear us, that you can see us, and that you're good to come up. Thumbs up if you are. Awesome. I always want to make sure. I was joking yesterday. I was like, you never know what's happening behind the scenes. So you got to kind of ask permission sometimes. Do you remember the old Zoom days back beginning of COVID where, like, not quite naked people, but like people in their underwear walking by? I just gotta ask.
Yeah, kind of a sense of, I don't really care to be here.
Well, yeah, nobody was wearing pants back then. They were, it was like pajamas. It's all good. So welcome. I'm enjoying the laughs. Welcome to the stage, Deb. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Lovely to be here. Take a deep breath for that one. Shake it off.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
Dusting.
start with my same question that I really have fun asking people. And I'm going to explain why I ask it because it's just been coming up a few times. I like asking this question because it's a little difficult for people, which means they cannot plan their answers.
Good.
Automatic win.
Mhm.
Also because when I ask a question that puts them just slightly off of what they may have planned to talk about, they give me more truthful answers that their mind just knows, okay? They can't plan it. So then that means I get to know your heart. I get to know a little bit of your values. I get to know how you want the world to see you. So here's the question, Deb. If you could have people in your audience and your world, if they had 3 words that you would like them to use to describe you, what might those 3 words be?
I was already planning the answer, but then before you finish your sentence, my clients, I like them to be thinking, I am open.
Is that one of your
But
words? You want people
no,
to
that
describe you as open?
no, well, yes, absolutely. But I was answering your question before you finished the sentence. So that's how my clients come in, right? I am open, because if they're not, there's no change.
Yeah.
And yeah, but how I want my clients to describe me,
Sure.
because because yeah, I was a little nervous off the top there, and I think,
No,
what is
it's
that
good.
question?
It's good.
Challenge question.
They
Yeah,
change every day. It's great.
yeah. Open, I would say, yeah, open, enthusiastic, and sometimes a little serious, because I like to go a little deeper than just the surface. Staying on the surface is not
Oh,
what
boy.
gets us anywhere. We can't make change if we just lurk around in our little floating device in the pool.
Completely agree. So then the follow-up question is, what kind of work do you do, and how do these 3 words impact that process?
Yeah.
So you said open, enthusiastic, and serious. How do these help you do better in the work that you do?
Because I'm a self-care life coach, and there's a heavy, strong divider between what a coach is and what a therapist is. But
Yes.
of course, we weave through some things that are quite difficult sometimes, and it edges up towards therapy. So I have to bring them back and make sure that we stay within that coaching. So that's where I need to pull out the humor card and remind them of, well, that's where we start, to really do self-care, self-empowerment, self-love. You can't really go anywhere until you have decided and done the work to say, yes, I love me. I love what I do. Yes, the self-hug. I
Okay, let's
write
all
that
begin.
in blogs. I've got the instructions on how to do a self-hug.
Ooh, you'll have to bring us through that afterwards. We'll get the audience engaged. Continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, to start with values, vision, purpose, strong boundaries. We are trees. We have to see our roots going down into the earth. And before we go out there and put ourselves out there, we need to have those really strong boundaries so we don't get knocked off by anything that comes along. Because the program that I have is fun public speaking for opinionated introverts. So putting themselves out there, they have to have that foundational piece first.
Yeah.
They have to really know themselves and dig deep.
Yep. I find introverts do that a little more than extroverts. I'm very much an extrovert. And my favorite people are introverts because they do the internal thinking and I'm an external processor. So when I have conversations with somebody who has already done a lot of the processing themselves, it can be that deeper conversation instead of the surface level. And I love it so much.
Good.
And
Nice.
I found that I've shifted in my journey. I'm Leo, so I was always very extroverted. And now that I've done this deep dive, I am introverted. Before, I could not be alone with myself. It was uncomfortable. I just needed to be around people. And it was torture to be by myself. Absolute torture, because it was uncomfortable. It would mean I'd have to go inside and face all of the aspects of myself that I didn't like. And through this journey, I've come to just feel at home, feel a sense of peace with being alone. And so I now define myself, I don't like labels, but it's like I'm an introverted extrovert.
Yeah,
Right? So
there's that spectrum.
yeah, there's that spectrum. So yeah. I have a question for you, Deb. So what would you say is your main vision for your life and your business?
Silence.
Ooh.
Because that's where the juice is, when I'm not the sit in the lotus position for hours and hours type of meditator. I'm a get in my car and I meditate for a minute. Before I leave the house, I meditate before I cross that door for 1 minute. And then I integrate different components of that. Yes, I take those long, lovely courses, but so many years ago, I took a silent retreat for 4 days, and it really, really impacted me. So to go in, like you say, like some clients I know, they have to leave the TV on or music on when they go out, so that when they come home, they feel like there's still that something going on. But to really get in touch with our inner selves, silence, deep silence is required. I find that's what I find for myself, and I've heard a lot of people who agree with me.
Yeah, I resonate with that, because you have to quiet all of the external noise, everything that's here, and all of those projections and perspectives and judgments, and really just come back to self, so that you can find your truth, right? And you find that if you have all of that noise, and it takes time, and it takes practice.
Yeah. It's not I read this book and suddenly I'm a different person. Absolutely not. Or I just took one course and I'm suddenly, yes, you're suddenly a different person, but there's still many layers of that onion that need to go before you really have hold of it. It's that there's this story of somebody who wanted that deep silence, and they went and they lived in the hills of Tibet, and they were in those caves and doing their silence and begging for food and being a monk for months on end. And then they go out into the markets, or they go back down to the regular lifestyle, and they're cranky and angry, and they didn't give themselves enough time to really let it sink in. It was still superficial.
Well, and I think it's about balance, right? We can't just be all in the spiritual, and we can't just be all in the physical, right? We're a spiritual being living a human experience. So we have to have that balance between the two. And something I'm very guilty of. When I started my spiritual journey, I loved it. I would meditate for hours a day. I literally just tuned out of the rest of the world, because it was my happy place. I didn't want to be in my human body. I didn't want to experience all the uncomfortableness of change and growth. And so I find that when we can find that balance, that's when everything starts to unfold for us. And because it's not just about being up here and being in that higher space of elevation, and it's, can you bring that into the physical, into your relationships, into your career, right? And how does that play out?
I like that we've talked about meditation a few times, yesterday and today, and everybody kind of brings up that whole image of the loaded position. You got your fingers home, whatever it is.
Right.
I can meditate like that. I'm like Debbie, the one just before you. We've got lots of like Debs and Debbies today.
Yay.
Where there's so many thoughts that play in my head, and I'm guessing you're much the same, Deb, where it's hard to kind of silence those. I would love to hear your opinion on that belief that meditation is about silencing those thoughts. Is that what you believe too?
Oh, absolutely. But for I write about it, and sometimes I say, okay, where's the synonym for meditate? Because a lot of people hear that word and say, nope, not for me.
Yeah.
And they're off already, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm not doing that.
No.
But for me, now it's quite easy when somebody asks me, how do these dramatic situations affect you? They don't, because it's out there. It's it passes by. I still see you, I still hear you, but the voice used to be here, right here on my shoulder. And now it's like, oh yeah, I see you over there, but I'm not paying attention to you. I'm not allowing you to come any closer than that.
And
I wanted to bring it up. Here, hold on, just Stacey. I wanted to bring it up because it's a huge misconception that meditation is about completely emptying the mind, but it's exactly what you said. It's about noticing what's going on and then choosing not to engage. And you asked about a synonym. Basically, meditation is just the journey of self-awareness. That's it. So if you want to use
but
self-awareness, I know, like
one word replacement. I'm still
awareness.
And it's about creating space.
Exactly.
So yes, it's about, because what you're really talking about is separating yourself from that thought, but creating space.
Yep.
Right. And not getting sucked into it or drawn into it, but
Yeah.
honoring it's still there. Right. Because I don't think we can ever completely turn off our brains. So I agree with you,
God, no.
Laura.
No,
And then
I don't
people
think so.
struggle. Then they feel like a failure and then they give up.
Yeah.
Right. And
yeah. And the quote, Maya Angelou, when you meet somebody, it's, I just feel like I want to write a blog on this. And she says, now I had it this morning and I forgot now, but it's very famous. And it's, people might not remember you, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And I really want to bring that into today. I don't know when she said that, but if you have done your work and you are feeling strong, your self-love is there, your self-esteem is working for you, they can't make you feel something. If you find, you go to a shoe store, this is my example because it happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I was looking for shoes. I tried them many shoes on, and then and she was very, very helpful. And then it took me a while, and I went to her and I explained, I'm really looking for this shoe. And she had changed into a different person, and she very, very abruptly, no longer friendly, said, I do not think we have the shoes you're looking for. And, a tiny little instinct said, oh, is this a reflection on me? But no, it was the outskirts voice that said, no, she's having a tough day. So it's all on her. And so I remember her, but she wasn't able to make me feel bad. Maybe I felt a little bit for her that she was either in the wrong job or just having a bad day.
Right, because it creates perspective, right? When you can create space, it creates a higher perspective. So you're able to kind of see what that person is going through and have compassion for them and not take it on.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Which we tend to do. We take everything personally. And it's about us because we're the center of the universe.
Of course. Not everybody else agrees.
So if we're taking on all this stuff, you had mentioned earlier about you having a practice about self-hugging. Does that help us let it go? Because I would really love to do that right now.
Yes, or the self-pat on the back. Have you ever done that one?
Ooh. Okay.
Yes. So
everyone watching and listening, we're going to do stuff together now.
Hug yourself. Take your right hand and place it just on your heart, sort of under your arm, over here. Yeah. Start there. And then put your left hand on your upper shoulder here. And then you can take it wherever you are. If you're laying in bed, it's lovely to do in the morning. You're laying in bed, and then you can really get into it and roll around and have some affirmations that this is going to be an amazing day today because today's a good day for a good day.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm thinking of SpongeBob
Yeah.
from yesterday's conversation. I'm ready. I love me. Everything is awesome. Now I
Yeah.
got the Lego song playing in my head. Like all the references you could possibly think of.
Yeah. The earworm song is good. Always.
Beautiful.
Everything is awesome. Okay, that is the challenge for everyone now. Look around your office, wherever you are. Look at the light, look at the water bottle, whatever it is, and say, the light bulb is awesome. The water is awesome. And say it with enthusiasm. My mouse is awesome. My pen is awesome.
Gratitude. Having gratitude for the whole thing.
Gratitude. Great.
Yeah.
So Deb, how do you use these types of tools and practices in the work that you do?
Integrate them at the right moment.
Ooh.
You know, after some of from the beginning, you know, I always have a discovery session for an hour and a half, and that's when all those pieces come out. But it takes another few sessions before people are willing to let go of some of those.
Yes.
You know, when they say session 2, session 3 is like, oh, I had such a bad day. I couldn't even work all day Friday, and then integrate them then when it's like they're more open. I am open to receiving that and then applying it and wanting to do it. You know, I'm not a type of coach that tells people what to do. Not at all. I'm not the soccer coach with the whistle out on the field.
Yeah, I don't think that's a coach. I think that's a mentor.
But the word coach is overused. So
yeah. So you said you like deep conversations. Let's go really deep with this. I want to know, like, at the depth of Deb and at the depth of Deb's story and at the depth of Deb's skills that she wants to share with people, what is that core message that you just need people to take away from any expression of your work?
Take what really, really scares you and do it. It might take you a while. It might take you a year, but do it.
Do it.
Because whatever we're afraid to do, we avoid, we skirt around, we spend a lot of energy skirting around stuff that we think, oh, we can't go there. That's what we need to do. That's a message from the universe saying, I think this is what you need to work on next. I've spent decades doing that.
Right. And I've heard this recently, what you resist will persist, right?
Yes.
So the more you resist it, it's just going to be there waiting for you, and it's going to amplify, especially if it is in alignment with your soul's calling and where you need to go next.
Yes. That's back to the silence, you know.
Oh, yes.
Then you'll get those strong messages that say, that's your next task. Let's get over the fear of messages.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I said, I got those strong messages this weekend at the Experts Boot Camp. You just, like, behind the scenes, you just see so many people going through crap, and yet they're still there showing up, and they're having those conversations about, well, it was courageous just for me to be here today. And then I was so inspired come Sunday. I was like, I've been really, really wanting to sing in public because I love it, and I used to do it. That old me was so open. And then I was so closed for so long that the new me is like, we need to do this. So then I sang my intro, like I wrote lyrics and sang an intro. With my,
I was there, but I missed Sunday.
Oh, you missed Sunday?
Darn.
I'm not one to get scared on a stage, but oh my God. And then the feeling afterwards, you say you want people to be courageous and do things. It's that opening up afterwards that is so empowering that you're like, I got to do this again, or the momentum is going to stop.
Yes. But did you feel like you could breathe better?
Oh my God, yes.
That's how I feel. Okay, I did that. Check. I can breathe even better than before.
It felt so good.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. Well, let's talk about your message some more, about this, like leaning into those moments of courage. How do you like to share that message? Do you like to write? Are you in the books? Are you on stage? Do you have a podcast? What's
Yes,
your
yes,
favorite way?
yes, and yes. All of those things.
All of it. But did you do them because you were supposed to, or did you do them
No.
because you actually like them?
Like them. Yeah. That's
Okay.
why I have a program on public speaking, because I was the floor staring, shoegazing introvert working in the corporate
Oh,
world that, just wanted to be invisible. Please don't call on me. No, 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 no.
yeah.
And I took a public speaking course, and I was absolutely changed after that, whatever it was, 2-3 weeks. It was so many years ago. And now I love it. It's like I could be in the audience, somebody passes me the mic, I'm up there. I'm still my introvert. I may have to speak slowly as my mind processes what I need to say, but I'm an organized introvert. So when I'm invited to a stage, then yes, I practice and make sure I'm ready for that. So I did at the University of Alberta. I did the Blue Talks just recently, and yeah,
Congratulations.
because I wanted to get that message out of coaching and how I was coached and I lived my dream. I moved to Santiago, Chile, and lived there for 8 years. And I would have never been able to do that without a coach. I just kept thinking about it. And that was her message to me, stop thinking about it, just do it.
Yeah. So what was that switch that happened in your mind? There's so many people watching this who have that message and they want to be courageous, but it really is that fear of getting on a stage or even getting started that stops them. So what was it that switched for you?
I believe it's the process when we're engaged. And I find because when I'm working with someone and there's just the two of us and there's no cameras anywhere, then that's when the real gift comes out, because you start speaking without thinking, and then your subconscious brings up what it is you need and want.
Yeah.
And then when you have those gentle nudges from a coach, then you move forward, because you jumped into it because you want to make change in your life, and then you do it.
Yeah.
You just do it in the end. Mm-hmm. But it's the verbal processing. Doesn't work. I've tried to do my own coaching in the mirror. Doesn't work. It's that feeling of human to human connection and somebody who's deeply listening to what it is you're saying and what you want to do and help you move forward.
That's what pulls me on those days where it scares the crap out of me. Like, I've been on the stage since I was 4. Being on the stage is not an issue. Speaking, however, was an issue because I thought that you had to be prim and proper and perfect and, all those stories I played in my head. But what really got me to do it for the first time was understanding that one person, we were talking about this yesterday, that one person in the audience that needs to hear you, are you going to deny them their chance, their opportunity at change and any sort of shift because you have a little bit of fear to go do this? Like, do you want to be that person? And I was like, no. So then I also said, what if I was that one person in the audience that just needed that person up on stage? And then I was like, whoa, okay.
Yes. That's a nice way to think of it.
To be there.
Yes.
Because there's no way I would want the person that I need to help me to not walk on that stage.
Right.
And that's a beautiful message.
I think it's because when we're in this line of work too, we seek to inspire, right?
Yeah.
And I see that your business is called Keen Inspiration. Mm-hmm. So I have a question for you, because I know as coaches, we seek to inspire others, but we also are inspired and we learn valuable lessons from our clients. So what would you say is your greatest inspiration or your greatest lesson that you have learned from one of your clients on the journeys that you've taken throughout the years.
I like how aligned you are, Stacey. That was going to be my plan starting tomorrow.
Well, it's just, we're talking about everything we're talking about.
I know, it just fit right in.
Well, I say the program that I have is FUN. It's an acronym, FUN, for Finally Understanding No Fear.
Ooh.
And it has to be an individual process to get through that. Because I like the way you described, Laura, is you need to show up. You must show up and go, because so what if there's 5,000 people? If you touch that one person with your message, that's the magic. And that helps, because that's one of the images that people have, is they just can't be up on stage in front of so many people.
Yeah.
So to get through that, once we have our values, boundaries, and know that our self-esteem is high enough to say, yeah, I have value, I have an important message or many important messages to share with people, then it's easier. Even if we have to sit and meditate a half an hour before to convince ourselves every time, after a while it becomes easy and easier, I'll say, because to get up on stage, there's still butterflies in there, and I think they're like helpful. They're, a swarm of butterflies is called a kaleidoscope. But when you have just one friendly little butterfly, hanging around, just to give you that courage, because I think to be overconfident doesn't really work. And so, a one little butterfly as we work through all of our fears and get out there and be seen and be heard. Yeah. It's magical.
Yesterday I have a show on Mondays called Monday Morning Mindfulness. So yesterday on Monday Morning Mindfulness, I talked about the courage thing, but I also talked about fear and how I hear all the time, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I'm like, no. Fear on a biological level is so similar to excitement. We just perceive it differently. So I'm like, I have learned to befriend fear. And I understand that fear is like the most loving emotion we could ever experience. The difference is our relationship to it. And so every time I experience fear, it's like, okay, fear, I get it. You love me and you're trying to keep me safe. But what I really need from you right now is to be my cheerleader.
Yeah.
And that's when I can flip it from the butterflies and the throat being tense to, okay, this is now physiologically excitement instead of fear. And then I have that adrenaline that pushes me forward instead of holds me back.
Yeah. Nice transformation there.
Exactly. Beautiful. I was like, I'm transmuting, because I finally learned what it actually means. I'm transmuting that energy from something that I don't want, that I feel is unhelpful, into something that I do want, that can catapult me forward.
Mm-hmm. And I resonate with that, Laura, because when I did my bLU talks a couple of years ago on viewing fear through the lens of love, that's exactly what it was. Seeing fear as a friend that's here to enlighten and awaken you to a new level of awareness, right?
Yeah. And then you're never alone.
Right. And there's always wisdom in that. There's wisdom in that fear for you, because it's something that you need to overcome, right? It's that next level thing that if you resist, it's going to persist. And so it just amplifies. And the more you push it down, or you say, oh, I'm not doing this right now, right? You avoid it. You pretend it's not there.
Yeah.
Anxiety attacks come up. Those power moments, because as you said, Deb, you're not listening to the little nudges of spirit, right? Or your soul. And so it gets louder. The message gets louder. It goes from a whisper to it.
And it repeats.
Spark.
Yeah.
It repeats.
Well, that's exactly what
until
the
you
anxiety
get it.
Were. Yeah. It's like all those emotions that come up, and we think we have bad emotions and good emotions. No. They're all emotions. They're all communication. Yeah. So then, like, the anxiety attack happens because I was pushing it down, because I'm ignoring it and I'm not listening. But it's like that little kid that goes, mom, 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 pulling on your mom, mom, and they get louder. And then what else are they supposed to do except for have a hissy fit or something? That's the anxiety text. So now your choice is, do you ignore it and make it louder? Or you have a heart attack? Or do you take the time? And this is what I did is I asked myself, okay, I understand there's some sort of emotion I'm not listening to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be present for the next few minutes. And if there's something that you need to tell me, now's your time. And then something would pop into my head, and then I would feel whatever emotion I was supposed to feel, and then my anxiety attack went away.
Right. And I love that because it is about tracking the right emotion, because fear is just very general. But with
Exactly.
fear, there's all kinds of different emotions. It can be frustration, overwhelm. It can be lack of self-worth. It could be feeling insignificant, not feeling enough. It could be frustration, anger, bitterness, jealousy, whatever. But you can't clear it. You can't move through it until you have isolated that emotion. So you really have to go inward, be silent, do some body testing, and just start naming those emotions and feel what resonates. And you'll know when you've hit it, because then the anxiety will release, the pain in your heart, the sadness will release. And then you can start to work with it and dig a little bit deeper, right? I'm always amazed though, when we get to the other side of fear, when we actually jump in, like you say, Deb, and just do it anyways.
Do it anyway.
And then we're like, oh my God, this wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, right? So if we could just remember that every time we're faced with fear, that when we get to the other side, there's something wonderful for us. And we created so much suffering with this beautiful thing right here, right?
Yeah.
That was
Slow
not
that
necessary.
machine down.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So Deb, if there was anything that you just needed people to take away from this conversation, what would that be? Could be anything.
Love yourself. If you don't think that you love yourself or you don't feel it, work on that one thing. And I think, like the word meditation, people want to move away from it. They often want to move away from the word self-love, or they think it's I don't have time for that, especially us women and especially mothers, because they forget to put themselves first. But you need to do that in order to help everybody around you. Yeah. And it's a lot of work. It's not easy. And it's the layers of onions. It keeps coming again and again. And if you're lucky, it becomes much more distant and manageable.
Yeah. Well, my old co-host, Scott McDermott, he works with a lot of people to help them lose weight and get fit and do that kind of stuff. We had a conversation once about self-love, because it's something that a lot of people forget to do when they're on that journey, because they're like, oh, I'm only going to love myself when I get to infill their goal, right?
Yeah.
But I told him, I was like, one of the things that I learned from my daughter was you look in the mirror, and I remember she was probably 4. She looked in the mirror and she started crying. And I heard her crying from the other room. So of course I come running, because I'm a mom. You just do that. And then I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? She's like, I'm just so pretty.
Oh, that's so good.
Oh my God. So then I started practicing that last time I was on my journey. And so now every time I look at the mirror, I picture her saying that, being crying with how awesome.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, I look in the mirror and I'm just like, damn, those curves. Doesn't matter what those curves look like today. That's the difference. I still have that same mindset of, okay, the mirror is not going to be something that's scary. I'm taking the courage right now to give myself that self-love. Every time I see a mirror, damn those curves. And then I just feel good. And then you can
that is a challenge, to do mirror work. That's one of the things I do to really speak to yourself. For, start with 1 minute. It's difficult, but start with 1 minute, stay with it, look yourself in the eyes, and give yourself all those compliments, and then work up to 3 minutes, and then the big reveal, work up to it in a full-length mirror without any clothes on.
Oh yeah. Before I get dressed every morning. I can't be dressed and say it. It's got to be before you get dressed in the morning and you see yourself in the mirror. That's when I say it. Yeah.
One of the most powerful practices that I used when I started my journey, because I couldn't accept compliments or anything like that, because I hadn't shifted yet, right, into having that sense that I'm just as valuable as the people that I give to in my life. and I serve and care for, is the I love you message. Have you ever heard of that? So you look in the mirror and you take both eyes and you just focus in on one eye and you just say, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you for 2 minutes. And I could never get through it without crying. Like at first it feels uncomfortable. You're laughing, you feel silly. You hope nobody's around at home, like watching and listening to you because it's really awkward. But then you really start to connect in and see yourself on a soul level and you feel it like your daughter did. And tears come, the emotions come because you see yourself for the first time.
Yes.
And then it evolved into like the affirmations and just, right, saying all the beautiful things to myself. But a powerful practice that I learned through Mind Valley, I believe. Yeah.
I learned a similar one through an open mindfulness group, since we're just talking about mindfulness too, where we had to take our hand and put it on the upper chest of another person. So if Deb, you were standing in front of me, my hand would be on your chest and your hand would be on my chest. And we would have to look at each other in the eyes.
Yeah.
And you would say something along the lines of like,
that now.
the light within me sees the light within you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Yeah.
And then they would say it back to you. The light within me sees the light within you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And you'd have to say it so slowly. And you weren't allowed to look away. And you're like, oh my God, this is so intimate. With a complete stranger in the class. We were trying all kinds of different things just to experience different types of spirituality.
That's powerful.
I love it. I could feel it in my whole body, Lauren.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
There's so many practices, and I love that we bring it from all these different areas of life, and we can focus it and funnel it into the different types of work and messages that we have. So Deb, before we go, we have about a couple minutes. Where do we find you, and what is your favorite way of communicating with people?
You find me on my website, keeninspiration.com.
Okay.
And from there, you can send me an email. You can phone me. You can set up an appointment with me if you like. And I don't have a favorite. I usually go with the client's favorite because that suits them. Yeah. So nice. And I just want to say the boot camp that was just on the weekend that passed, my moment was personally, I envisioned this Neale Donald Walsch, because I will have a chapter in the Blue Fox book that's coming out that is the foreword, I believe, is going to be written by Neale Donald Walsch, and I was so excited to get into that one.
Congratulations on that too.
Thank you. I'm very excited about that.
Was there anything else that you wanted to make sure that you shared with us today before we say goodbye?
That I believe we need more love in the world, and unfortunately, it's too quick to judge and then judge in a negative way and push people away rather than giving them room to make a lot of mistakes over and over again, because we need our own room to make mistakes and come back to it. Have a rest. If you just can't tolerate it, take a rest, whatever you need, a week, a month, and then come back to it when you're ready and quiet again.
Well, then let's take that moment to have a little mental rest together instead of people going for a nap. Because if you were like me, you were like, oh, a nap sounds so good right now. We can't. We're live. We're busy having fun conversations with people. So would you love to just guide us through like a 60-second rest? You said you love silence at the beginning. Did you want to guide us into like 30 seconds of silence?
Absolutely.
Sure.
30 seconds. I don't have a timer, but
ish, somewhere in there.
Yes. So wherever you are, standing, sitting, lying down, just close your eyes if you can. If you're comfortable with closing your eyes, or just gaze towards the floor and breathe. Take a deep breath in and breathe out through your nose if you can. And take another deep breath in and exhale. And then continue to breathe normally. And envision that your breath, when it comes in, is touching every part of your body. It starts at your head, goes across your shoulders, down your arms, to your hands, back to your torso, down your legs, to your feet, and back up and out your nose. And feel the difference in your body.
Everything seems a little bit brighter, Deb.
Nice.
Thank you.
It's good to do in the bathroom if you're at an event and you can't, and you're feeling anxiety come up. Just dip in, take a deep breath, come back out transformed.
Yeah.
Well, I want to take this moment to say thank you. Loved
Thank
having you with us. Can't wait to have you come back and join us.
Ooh, I'd love it.
And can't wait to see your chapter that's coming out and everything that you do with Blue Talks and not with Blue Talks. Just everything.
Yeah, thank you. It's
You're
really
welcome.
good to be here with you, Laura. And thank you, Stacy. Stacy Lynn.
Stacy Lynn, it was a pleasure meeting you. Yes.
Very nice to meet you
Thank you.
today.
Bye, Deb.
That's great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, we have our next guest behind the scenes. Davis, if you can hear us and you can see us and you're ready, just give me a thumbs up. Awesome.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're just a little low.
Huh. I don't know how to turn that up.
It might just be getting closer to your computer.
Yeah. Let's see.
Right.
How about now?
Oh, that's a little better. Yeah, there we go.
All right, cool.
So basically, we've been just having some fun today, and Stacy Lynn was getting into some questions I was going to ask later, but I'll start with my question that I've been asking everybody, because I want to see the patterns behind what people are saying, how they're feeling, how they want to interact. So here's the big question. If there were 3 words that you would love other people to use to describe you, what might those 3 words be?
Grateful.
Ooh.
Happy.
Mm-hmm.
And sharing.
Sharing. I love that. So then here's the second fold. We got to know a little bit about your values and how you would like the world to perceive you. But then that always plays a role in the work that you do and who you are as a person. And it's so deep. It has a lot of fun to it. So how does being grateful, happy, and sharing play a role in the work that you do? And while you explain that, you have to tell us what you do.
Well, I, at this point, am retired. What do I do? I live life, and these days on life's terms. But I have a passion in my life that was inspired by a dog that saved my life twice. So I travel the world and try to get laws passed for the disabled. So, for example, why would a blind man whose guide dog is his eyes by proxy have to sleep in the street because the hotel won't give him access? Why should he have to eat in the street because he can't bring that guide dog into the restaurant, or maybe a war veteran with no legs? So I champion access rights in the US and around the globe and try to educate people. Don't fight a dog. Teach it to help your grandmom get out of the chair, maybe.
Yeah.
And I owe my life to a dog, and I am grateful to a dog. You know, I did a Blue Talk at MIT. How do you thank someone for saving your life? What if it were a dog? How do you thank a dog for saving your life? And you know what? I've spent 10 years doing that.
10 years.
Yeah.
So then
yeah.
I want to know now, what's that story about a dog saving your life?
Twice.
Twice.
Yeah, it's a little complicated, but hey, here goes. So for some reason, I ended up in relationships and very codependent for 20 years. The first was an alcoholic, the second into crack. And my parents were alcoholic addict, and they tell you that quite often if your parents have an addiction, you have a master's degree in taking care of that wounded bird. So when you go looking for relationships in your life, subconsciously you're looking to do what you've always done and take care of that wounded bird, which I thought was a bunch of bull. But when I look back at my life in retrospect, it's absolutely true. And at one time, I gifted a little Labrador puppy to the addict in my life, thinking maybe Mother Nature could rescue the wounded bird better than I. But then I learned that puppy was due to be traded for crack cocaine to the drug dealer. And at that point, I bought a camper. I went out west and I gave up on life. And I was in a little town of Ajo, Arizona, working on a camper in a drunken stupor. The camper fell on my leg. I couldn't bend it. I went into my camper and the puppy came up to me and I shooed him away with my foot. And my shoe went flying. And you know what he did? He brought me my shoe back and I pushed him away. Well, that night, I almost took my own life. And I woke up in the morning with knocking at my camper door. And there were children. Mister, we got a dog. Can our dog play with your dog? Yeah, take him. He screamed out in pain 20 minutes later. I thought he'd been hit by a car because everything in life was bad. And he was holding his paw. He hit it on another truck while playing with the puppy. Now we were as one. You see, I resented the dog because he was always happy and I was always miserable. I couldn't get a hotel room because I had a damn dog. Every time I walked in, people, what a cute puppy, get out of my face. Now I got it. He was miserable and I was miserable. Now we bonded. It was a Helen Keller-like epiphany. I slept with that dog in my arms for 3 days. And when I woke up, I looked into his eyes and I said, you know, I get it. I'll never think about this again. And I'll always take one day to share you. Today, if you do a Google search for Davis Hawn Booster, you'll get about 10 pages on the internet all over the world. He motivated me to return to college. And I went to an amazing college, Bergen University of Canine Studies, founded by Bonnie Bergen, who invented service dog. I got a master's degree in dog. And I took a hit for that. Why do you want a degree in dog? Do you know what? That degree took me all over the world. Communist Cuba on television under Fidel. I sent an email to a biotech in Seoul, South Korea, where they clone dogs. Never thought they'd answer me. They invited me to Korea. And I ended up cloning my dog. But for the second part of the equation, saving my life a second time, excuse me, I came home from Asia one time in pain. I had 48 hours to live. My body was full of tumors from a herbicide sold in this country that you see the commercials on television. Have you used this stuff? Have you been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer? That was me. I had 48 hours to live. They threw me on a table, shot chemo into my spinal column because that goes to your brain. This stuff was known for going into the brain. Then they said, if you want to fight it, it's going to be 5 bags of chemo every day for a week, skip a week, skip a week, all summer long. And we're going to have to drill a hole in your skull, put a tube through your brain, and put a box in your head. And you're going to get 2 shots every week for 3 months, once a month thereafter. And even if we do that, it's going to be a 75% chance you will succumb to sepsis when we shrink those tumors, tears a hole in your stomach the first week. If it doesn't happen, 25% chance it's going to happen the second week. And I almost opted out. I mean, my life has been difficult. But I thought about my dog Booster, and he'd had a brain tumor, ate a hole through his skull. And I was ready to put him down. But I got an email from Cuba, of all places, fight for your dog. Long story short, I sent his MRI out around the country using that dog college education as an old man, learning the internet and how to research PubMed. And I got a call from a Dr. Pluhar, University of Minnesota. We'd like to take a piece of your dog's tumor and try to make a vaccine to fight a squamous cell carcinoma. Never done it before with that cell type, but we're going to try. Long story short, they developed a vaccine. My dog lost his hair on his head. He lost an eye from the radiation. He had a 3-inch hole in his head where they debulked the tumor. Well, I thought about my dog, and I put him through that. He was my best friend. How could I not put me through what I put my dog through? What a hypocrite. So with that thought, I agreed to eat the chemo for months. Turned out my bill was $1,550,000 first year.
Ooh.
But I found remission. I wouldn't be alive today. And I don't want to gross anybody out. But if you look here,
Oh, I love stars.
you see,
Yeah.
you see that, and there's a tube going down into my brain. That box
Yeah.
will never come out. I have a photo of my dog with no hair, 3-inch hole in his head with stitches. I have a picture of me bald with the 3-inch hole in my head with stitches. Talk about a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
And I just want to add one more thing. I had a lifelong friend. When I was in that shape, he would bring his son over to visit. And we were going to travel the world together because I've traveled a lot. My friend's name was Robert. And he looked at me with tears in his eyes. And he said, Dave, I love you. A year later, I'm in remission. He calls me on the phone. It's Christmas. And it's, hey, man, how are you? Dave, there's something wrong, man. There's something wrong. He had a glioblastoma brain tumor. I attended his funeral 4 months later.
Oh.
We switched places. And I'd like to think maybe that my work with the disabled, kids with AIDS in Thailand, cancer in Mexico, in Cuba, going into classrooms where few Americans had ever been before, I kind of think it's karma. I think as though my higher power, God, looked at me and said, you know what? You've helped the disabled. Now you are the disabled. It's like my life began again. And I had the most amazing oncologist, now on the lighter side, a Dr. Thule in Gulfport, Mississippi. She was wonderful. She knew about my dog Booster. And I said, you know, Dr. Thule, you know, I cloned Booster. Well, recently I cloned his girlfriend, Puffy. She passed away. But Dr. Thule, you gave me my life back. And I kind of gave Puffy her life back by cloning her. And she was the most amazing dog, very loyal, very loving, very friendly, just like you, Dr. Thule. But she was a real bitch, and that's where the similarity ends. The female word for dog, obviously.
Yeah.
And I had such a rapport with those doctors. But I can honestly tell you, I'm not sure that I would be alive today if not for my dog. So many stories, you know, and one more kind of fun thing. The cloned dog I named Puffers Thule Hawn in honor of my doctor. And she's 3 years old, and recently I bred her to one of the two clones. They were born on 9/11 in Seoul, South Korea. It was a 9/11 event in my life. Without my Booster, I didn't have a demo dog to show people or to bring into the world. My life, as I knew it, my passion was coming to an end. When the Koreans agreed to clone my dog, it's usually $100,000. They did it for next to nothing because they knew of my love for the dog. It's the greatest gift I've ever gotten in my life. Santa Claus pales by comparison. But I cloned Puffy and I got Puffers Thule. I bred her. She's 3 years old now. And busted. Okay, so there's Booster stole a toy. He was a thief. He was a booster. He stole a toy from PetSmart. I boosted his cells, stole them, sent them to Korea, and I got busted for it because people are like, I can't believe you played God. You're cloning your dog. Well, you know what? I just want what God gave me. I love it so much. I just want another copy. I don't want blue eyes or long. I just want another copy of the great gift God gave me. But there were two puppies born, and I named them Boosted and Busted. Well, Puffers was due to have her litter this September 12th. And there were to be 7 puppies. They were x-rayed. The night before she starts popping out her puppies like popcorn, she had an overbite. They had a problem cloning her. Anyway, I opened the puppy sacks, cut the umbilical cords to help her. In the morning, I finally got some sleep, cleaned the whelping box. The next day, I went to the whelping box, and there were 7 puppies. Wow, one was born a day later. But the cool part is those puppies were born a day early on 9/11. Just like I bred a clone to a clone, and they too were. However, one was born on 9/12, the expected due date. For me, That was as though God looked down and said, you know what? Those puppies were due on the 12th. But I know this is such a 9/11 event in your life that I've pushed it forward by a day. But I've delivered one on the 12th just to let you know what should have been if not for divine inspiration. And I tell people, yep, I got busted in Korea. Took me a few years, but I finally made bail. The largest one in the litter, the male, beautiful blockhead, dark color, just like Booster and the clones. I named him Bail. So I got busted in Korea, but I made bail 3 years later.
Right.
And he will be my dog to go future as a service dog. And, you know, so my life was once dismal and I almost took it. Now, in spite of all that past and depression, in spite of the cancer, you know, I'm optimistic and I've started traveling again. Went to Tepic, Mexico, was invited to demonstrate to the disabled there. I took the leaders of DEEF for the disabled into a restaurant and they said, no mascotas, you can't have a pet. I said, good, because he's a service dog. Sat down at the table. And they came running. Well, we're worried about the hair, the cleanliness. Well, the boy had set the table with the fork, with the tines of the fork between his thumb and forefinger. Not so sanitary. I looked at the manager, kind of scratched my side a little bit. And I said, you're worried about the hair of a dog. And he takes the fingers he scratches with and picks up the forks and puts them on the table. And I'm more worried about that. Well, with that, he went away. That night, I went out to dinner, took the executives out. They had a little chain across the door of the restaurant to control seating. They took it down. The officials went in and they put the chain up. You can't throw in with the dog, sir. Really? Okay. Now he's a service dog, but they don't have that law in Mexico. So I sat in coat and tie on the dirty street right there on the curb in front of that chain. I said, if this is where you serve the disabled, that's fine. Guys, y'all eat your meal. I'll eat my sushi here, please. They looked at me. And you know what happened? The chain came down. Come on in, sir. Dog went under the table. He was in a perfect down, and we ate. And I said, you see, that's the problem. A guide dog or service dog is a problem if you don't have an access law accompanying it. You tie your dog outside, a street dog attacks it. That's a $50,000 to $100,000 dog who will never be the same. Maybe they steal the dog as a bait dog for dog fighting. So access is important. I spent 8 years in the Bahamas with Booster. We got a national law passed. There is an access law, national disability law. They will tell you it was pretty much a one-man band. We helped get a law passed in Mexico City, not the country Mexico. But anyway, it became a passion and it lit up my life. I spent 10 years writing a book, My Booster, which will come out, I think, in about 4 months. And I'm having fun again because I'm recording my own audio book. I'm having it translated in Colombia into Spanish. I got a guy who will speak into the microphone and do the audio book in Spanish. And it's cool. And as an old man, I'm starting to learn how to do all that stuff and recording. But it all goes back to the dog.
I love your message of being committed, having the integrity to be committed to your mission, right? No matter what, using your voice, like willing to sit outside, just willing to do whatever it takes because you believe in your mission and you have passion and purpose for it. So regardless of how it may inconvenience you in that moment. So that's beautiful. That's
and you know what? It happened over and over again. Taxis who wouldn't let us get in. So I stand in front of the bumper and call the police till they arrive. An airline, Mexican, that wouldn't let the dog board the plane. No, it's national law. Called the television station, rolled on it, filed a complaint with the DOT. Took 2 years, and I fought an attorney out of New York City that the Mexican airline, hired. But with my Bergen University education, he kept talking about my comfort dog. Mister, I don't know what a comfort dog is. If you would define your terms, maybe I can understand you, but you're kind of out of your league. Took 2 years, but they sanctioned the airline with 2 violations of the international law. It just kept going on and on and on. And even though you got a law, it's still a problem sometimes. Yeah. But I'd also like to say that the more we complicate our world, the more we turn to dogs for a solution. Do you know, my master's thesis was going to work with battered women, right? That codependency, transfer it to the dog like I did. Battered women more often die from leaving the abuser than from staying in the abusive situation.
Yeah.
Horrible, right? Veterans at Bergen University started a program, Paws for Purple Hearts. They have veterans with psych issues train the dogs for veterans, maybe with TBIs or missing their legs, by working with the dog. The anger comes down, the PTSD symptoms. 22 out of 24 hours a day, a veteran is committing suicide. As we speak, somewhere likely or during this interview, a heroic veteran will take their life, but for the intervention possibly of the dog.
Yeah.
So it's more powerful than people realize. And yet there are those who fake service dogs, bring them in the public, and they misbehave. And it's horrible to do such a thing. And but the good overcomes the bad. And it's, how do you thank a dog for saving your life? You become an advocate, and that's kind of what I'm still doing. And I did a Blue Talk in Cambridge where I said, and then now I have a dream, kind of like Martin Luther King. I have a dream, and I'm certainly no man like Martin Luther. But my dream is to go into Kyiv in Ukraine, should that conflict resolve. No place I know on earth will need more service dogs. The psychological trauma, the torture that's going on. And I've got a very good friend there. I rented an Airbnb in a lady's home. It's a donation, not going there. But Airbnb doesn't charge a fee. And I got an email from this lady. Dear Dave, thank you. And should we survive, my daughter and I welcome you into our home anytime. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think you've ever invited a guest over and said, should I survive, we'll see you at 5 o'clock tonight. That's terrible. And it's and another gentleman sent me the picture of the drone going by his balcony and said, well, it didn't hit my place today. He's a friend. And in honor of my dog, should that situation resolve and they need such dogs, I will be there. I will be there. So.
I have a friend of mine who is in a wheelchair, and he talks about the laws changing all the time. He's like, there's so many of those little moments every single day that we take for granted, which we talked about yesterday. Just these small moments we don't even realize are happening. Where he's like, if there was a law that changed this little thing, it would make my day and people like me just be able to live their lives, not even like we do, people who aren't disabled, but just enough to feel a little more human and maybe be able to get through the day. It's like,
but one caveat, the law isn't good if people don't respect it or if it isn't enforced. It's a two-part equation.
Yeah.
We have laws in this country and people disregard them. And then I have to, and here's the kicker. If you lose it, oh, darn it, then you become the danger and the problem, and they have the right to ask you to leave. Veterans, you can tap them on the shoulder, and we have to learn to relax in order to present the situation. And I have found that I incorporate humor instead of anger. It calms me down.
He does the same thing.
Oh gosh, I went into a Walmart, little flip in Arkansas. Everybody was dressed in costume for Halloween years ago. I went in with Booster. Mister, we don't allow dogs in the store. Excuse me, he's a service dog. Is he really a service dog? I looked at that young man. I raised my voice just enough to get attention, but not enough to be considered violent.
Yeah.
Excuse me, son, he's really a service dog, but you're not really Zorro. So would you please get out of my way and let me shop? And the store manager comes over. I said, young man, I'm not mad at you. Mr. Manager, you failed to train that young man. You fail. You owe me an apology, and you owe this young man an apology. Now, everybody is staring at me in your store. What am I guilty of? I got a durable piece of medical equipment that helps me walk, and it's called a service dog. You see that number on your front of your store, 1-800 number? You guys lost a lawsuit because of exactly this. Service animals welcome, you lost 2. You were setting yourself up for a 3rd. I'm not going there, but you do owe me an apology. And everybody in the store was like, and one more. I used to take Booster on a cruise, and I got a photo of him stretching to like urinate in his box. He was trained to do it. The cruise line sends you a form. Does the dog know where to urinate and defecate? I mean, it's a good form. Well, we stopped in the island of St. Lucia, and on the buildings, I got photos, 3 different signs, and I apologize for the language or the vernacular, but this is the public sign on the building, says exactly, no piss here, ordinance 123 or whatever. So whenever I fill that form out, I send that photo and said, the dog knows where to go. He's got a $50,000 to $100,000 education. But if you're going to stop at this island, perhaps you need to let some of the people fill out the same form because they don't know where to go. And and on the cruise is warm, and then I'll chill. But it's so cool. So I bought the access to the thermal suite, big 30-person jacuzzi, ceramic chaise lounges that are heated in the back of the boat. You overlook the water. I bought it. I went in with Booster. He was 30 to 50 feet away next to the wall in a down position, not moving. When I got back to my room later that afternoon, the phone rang. It was one of the officers. Sir, I need to speak with you. I went to the office. What's the problem? He said, we can't allow you to have the dog in the thermal suite. I said, well, why is that? Well, we're worried about sanitary conditions. Well, at that point, I just had fun.
I know where this is going.
And the officer looked like a little puppy on the dashboard of a car with his head like, huh? And then I said, sir, let me explain something. The dog was 50 feet away, and you're worried about a dog here. I'm in a jacuzzi loaded with hair. They were curly. Some were blonde. Some were brunette. Some were black. Some probably came from a stomach. Some probably came from a back. Some probably came, as Anthony Bourdain would have said, parts unknown. And you're worried about a dog here, and I'm sitting in water full of bromine or chlorine chemicals. But sir, I've been going into the dining room with the dog on cruises all my life, including your ship, and the dog's 3 feet under the table, and you're not worried about people ingesting the dog hair? Really? Well, sir, the home office made that determination. Well, I'm an advocate. Check out on the internet. I went to the web, got a hold of the home office. Well, the ship's officers make that determination. Now we're playing good cop, bad cop. So I went back to him and I said, look, somebody isn't being upfront about this. The following day, he calls me to the office. Mr. Hawn, look, I apologize. This has been a learning experience for our cruise line. We're going to give you access for free for that thermal suite for the rest of the cruise. We put a $100 gift in your account. And we'd like to invite you and Booster, not your dog, Booster, to Circus du Soleil on the ship to have dinner with me and this other officer in the theater at the officer's table. I said, great, but I got one other favor. What's that? I said, there was a pool boy on the deck next to the jacuzzi outside. He brought my dog a bowl of water, and I never asked for it. How kind. The boy that makes the room, he pets my dog. He cleans up the box with the plastic poop bags, never says a word. Look, you gave me $100. I've got two $50 bills in my cabin. I'd like you, if you will, to summon those two gentlemen to your office when you can. And what goes around in life comes around. And I'd like to give them the $100 that you gave me. But please don't tell them. The next day they call me. I go to that office. Those two guys are standing there. They don't know if they're going to get fired or thrown overboard, right? And I repeated to them. I said, you guys are just some of the nicest, warmest individuals. The cruise line is lucky to have you. And they've given me a $100 gift. And I've cut it in half. And sir, 50 is for you and 50 is for you. And they had the photographer on the ship taking pictures. But then it went from here, you see, all the way to here. That's my calling. And I've become good at it, using humor, calming down, using the education that Bonnie Bergen, her university, Bergen University, instilled. And to this day, people still laugh that I got a degree in dog. And I tell them, take your Harvard or whatever, I shouldn't name names, take your
No.
degree, I'll give you 10 years, let me Google you and see if you get 10 pages on the internet all over the world like I did with my dog degree. And we laugh. So my life has gone from this to this.
And I love it in your stories. You're really highlighting the difference between people who come from a place of unconditional love,
Yes.
just seeing their connection in all things and through all things and responding in that way. And then others who have more of an elitist, separatist type of view, right? And they don't feel connected. And because they don't feel connected, they don't see the value in things outside of themselves. So, yeah.
And the dog is such a social lubricant. And, I went into Mexico and I lectured at the University Veterinary School. They took me to visit children with disabilities. There was a little blind boy in the back that was scared, but he was whispering to his mom he wanted to meet Booster. And the mom said, but he was scared. Well, he's blind. They fight dogs in a lot of countries. So I said, bring him up. And that little boy put his hand out and he took it back. And he put it out to pet Booster and took it back. Finally, he put it out. And then my Booster raised his head to connect with that hand. And they were as one. Then another little boy wanted to pet him. And the little boy kneeled down and he squeezed Booster, I'm often said, like a piñata. Booster lost an eye to radiation. He was a one-eyed dog. The mom leaned over to me, Senor, my son has just lost his right eye to cancer, just like your dog. He's bonding with your dog. It was all I could do to keep from crying. I didn't want the kids thinking I was like sad or feeling bad for them. I turned and then I turned back. When the bus took the kids home, the lady said, Senor, have some punch, have a snack, please. And I wanted to be nice. And so I reached behind me and grabbed a potato chip and I brought it to my face. The dam broke. I mean, I was crying so hard, still am. And they probably thought I was on drugs and they hit home, right? It was a potato chip. It was a simple potato chip, but it was in the perfect shape of a human heart. It was as though God or higher power is looking down saying, you're on the right track. How do you explain stuff like that? And it just keeps happening in my life. And I've never been a very religious person and not really that spiritual. I am now because the dog introduced spirituality. And and he taught me there's no coincidence in life. Everything happens for a reason.
I love that you brought the dog in with your spirituality. When I was younger, I would classify myself as spiritual, not so much religious. Religion was just kind of like pushed on me because yay, parents. But then when my dog died, he saved me, but he didn't save my life. He just saved me from being stuck. And I absolutely loved that dog. Like he pulled me out of danger, licked my wounds, all of it, barked at my parents, and he never barked, ever. It was delightful. So when he died, we moved shortly after. And I remember one night being in bed and I was awake and I'm like, why am I not asleep? Why am I not asleep? I look over, I see my dead dog with glowing eyes looking at me, not doing anything, just like sitting there lovingly looking at me. And I get scared because I had never experienced anything like that before. And so I just shut it all down for about 25 years. Like, this doesn't exist. This doesn't exist. This doesn't exist. But I got my mom to look in the room. I got my brother to look in the room. I was like, is it shadows? Is it fabric? Is it something? Anything? Nothing. But now that I have allowed that spirituality to come back in, I was like, no, that was my dog coming to visit me, just as I experienced, saying that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
He was still protecting me after he left.
I totally get it.
Pets in general are, like, I have therapy cats, and here in Nova Scotia, there are no laws for therapy pets. There are laws for service pets, but not therapy pets.
Yeah.
And I had to figure that out in the hard way.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. And there's a difference between service animals and
Yes.
therapy animals.
Yes.
The service animals get access, the therapy dogs don't, unless they're like invited. But it's been such an amazing journey. And I would wish anybody and everybody could have a trained service dog in their life. You know, we use them for everything. Diabetic alerts. We put the dog on the child's bed. The child's blood sugar is more volatile than maybe an adult's. So if it goes down or whatever in the night, the dog jumps off the bed, goes to the parents' bedroom, and wakes them up in the middle of the night to go check on their child who might go into a coma. You know, we have seizure alert dogs. Don't eat that steak because you're going to have a seizure in 15 minutes, right? All kinds of things. But if they can't go inside, what good are they? Then they become a problem, not an asset. So it's still a fight. And, you know, but I find reception. You know, I took Booster to Thailand when Bangkok was underwater. I figured children have been flooded. When you have a flood, you lose everything. I went through Hurricane Katrina, excuse me, and never been to Asia, jumped on a plane, 26 hours with my dog.
Oh.
And I contacted orphanages. I went to one, it was a little more, maybe a little more special than the other ones. All the children had HIV. At that time, 10 years ago, the adults maybe were afraid to hug them or love them because of the disease.
Yeah.
They looked at Booster. He won them over within 15 minutes. And I got home and I opened up my mailbox afterwards. I had drawings from those Thai children. We love your dog, Booster. Those, as I often say, are my most prized possessions in life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everywhere I went, that dog just seemed to connect. And there are studies done that say that the disabled partner with a service dog. When people run into that disabled person in the future, they really don't remember often the name of the person, but they always remember the name of the dog. It's true. And I remember at Bergen, there was a lady, Elise, and she was in a wheelchair. She had gone to college. Her mom accompanied her to all her classes, and her legs didn't work. Her hands did to a degree. And I remember going up to her dog and saying, shake or paw, and he gave me the paw. And then I froze. I shook the dog's hand, but I never shook the young lady's hand. Mm-hmm. How rude, right? So then I reached out and I picked up a hand that didn't work and I shook it. Nice to meet you. I've never failed to first greet the person and pick up the hand that doesn't. People don't know how to shake a hand that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Because of the dog. And it was just so amazing. So amazing.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you.
There was a gentleman that would get on the bus and his dog's name was Charlie.
Yeah. Well, you know, and Bonnie had, for years has had a boot camp training people to train service dogs. First 3 weeks, you're the student. Second 3 weeks, you're the instructor. But she starts out letting you pick a dog on campus that you like. And then she says, you're going to hold that leash for 7 days. You are never to turn loose of that dog's leash. When you shower, you're holding the leash. When you're using the facilities, you're holding the leash. When you're cooking, you go to the store, it's a service dog, you're holding that. Sleeping, it's around your wrist. If you don't do it, I will know. Day number 7, the students go into like a gymnasium. Sit, please. Drop your leash. Don't talk to your dog or look at it. When I call your name, simply get up, start walking around that gym track. Joey, get up. Joey gets up, walks around. And you know what? The dog jumps up and is by Joey's side walking around the rest of the track. Susie, Jill, get up. Those two get up, they're dogs. And she calls it the umbilical cord process. Just like a baby tethered to the mom by the umbilical cord, the dog is tethered to you for 7 days and becomes your dog. It is bonded to you over that 7 days. It's fascinating stuff. Mm-hmm. Fascinating stuff. I don't mean to be talking your head off. It's just...
No, it's all very interesting. We do have about 5 minutes left. So I do want to ask you, you have this message and your story is just, we didn't really have questions. We're too busy listening.
Exactly.
So what are your favorite ways to share this message with other people, since this is Amplify Your Message?
What is my favorite means of doing it? Is that
Yeah.
what you-
Yeah.
Well, I've gone through the gruesome process of writing a book.
Yeah.
You say you're in Nova Scotia. I hired a Canadian firm, Breeson Press. What an education. Edit, 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 edit. And I'll tell you, my main takeaway was if you get a publishing company, they mainly keep the proceeds, maybe the movie rights, blah, blah, blah. If you self-publish, that stays with you. 50% of those proceeds, if there are any, will go to Bergen University to sponsor scholarships for kids, right? But my main takeaway is originally my book was like 350, 400 pages. It was going to be a $70 paperback because they print on demand, one copy at a time. Whereas a regular publisher, it would be $29 or $19.95 hardcover. That was the greatest thing I've learned. What good is a $70 paperback? Throw it in the garbage. But anyway, I've written my book, and I'm hoping people, how should I say this, will treat themselves to reading it, because the stories are so true. They're almost all corroborated on the internet. And I love my dog Booster so much, I'd always call a newspaper reporter or a television. And you know what? For some reason, they always responded. And I think
because it's a dog.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think Americans spend $80 billion a year on their pets.
Mhm.
If you have a passion or if you want to write a book, what better could you have than a pet or a dog? And and Booster, he almost died so many times. Cancers, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, tick bites. There was a lot of divine inspiration. And I would encourage people that have a dog or a cat, whatever you do, get pet health insurance. One of my Labradors last summer, his bill was $22,700. How many people can write a check for a dog? However, this company, I guess I can say it, Embrace, wonderful company, they $200 deductible annual, 90% reimbursement.
Oh,
The other 10% was tax deductible because it's part of my dog thing. But my dog gave me 22,700 flyer miles that took me to Colombia 3 months later. The points on the credit card. I collect the points. Yeah. All that travel you see on the internet, nobody paid me a dime for. It was thanking my dog for saving my life and airline points in my business. So that's how I chose to spend them. So I've written a book. I often visit. I go to service dog conferences like in Tepic, Mexico. And by the way, the mayor had a press conference. They had just elected the first lady mayor, and they were so proud. And she asked me to say some words at the press conference. I said, guys, I'm proud of you. You've elected your first lady mayor. And I got to tell you, this is my service dog here. If you love an animal, you usually put their needs above your own. You can give the key to your front door to that person and trust them because they love an animal. And I've just learned that your mayor has 5 dogs. You probably just elected the finest, most loving, empathetic mayor in your city's history. And she didn't pay me 1 peso to say that, by the way.
Right.
I later had a speech. There were a couple hundred people in this building. And the mayor was there to introduce me. And I had my clone boosted by the side. I bought a wicker basket earlier in the day and put flowers and a little doggy statue in it. It was behind the curtain. And I said, Mayor, my dog Boosted has a gift for you. He went behind the curtain, bring it. He picked up that basket and brought it to the mayor and gave her her basket of flowers. Aww. TV cameras came out and did a story the next day. It's just, my life went from dismal to incredible. The dog and a dog education at Bergen University that people made fun of.
Yeah.
So, what other people think of me is none of my business. And I've learned that in the Al-Anon program, which I love. And be true to yourself. And if you believe in it, it'll come true. It really will. I trust me.
So we have about 30 seconds left or so.
From the suicide thing to the cancer thing, And I will tell you, when I went into Cuba, they said nothing happens quickly in Cuba. Within weeks, I was on live TV under Castro, radio, went into classrooms for the disabled, given access to maybe where other people were not. It was great. And when Booster, he had his one eye on one of the trips. We went to a school for the disabled kids. Those little Cuban children are like little 30-year-olds. They reach out, muerte, does he bite? No. Then they assess you, then they pet. They forgot to do that because they were disabled. They saw this hole in his head, the scar. Look, he's like us. They bonded instant. It was just amazing to see that kind of thing, And my life has been so enriched. So I think you're fortunate in life if you develop a passion. If you don't do anything with that passion, it's a damn shame. And there's always a way. And what I was going to get to, I went to Mexico, gave a scholarship to a Mexican man to train service dogs. He was training search and rescue. And he said, you can't get a law passed here. Nothing happens in Mexico. Well, I said, you know what? I don't know that. So if I don't know what can happen, maybe it can. Mm-hmm. And that taught me a lesson too. If I don't know that I can't do it, well, that's great because maybe I can. But if you think you can't, and if you're told you can't do that, well, and you take that in and believe it, then you can't. If you think you can't, you can't. But if you don't know you can't, you can.
Right. And when you surrender to your passion, doors of opportunity that were closed suddenly start to open, right? Because you're just in full alignment with purpose. Yeah.
And one opens the next door, which leads you down the hallway to the next door. It's just amazing how things turn out like that. I can't.
So David, I'm sorry to cut you off. We are out of time, but I do want to make sure that we know where to find you so that we can learn more and hear more about you.
Yeah, let me give a personal email if I may. I've got a Booster the service dog at yahoo.com, but I really haven't. I'm just getting into that area, Mark. Anyway, iCoat, ICOP like Paul, ED, iCoat at gmail.com. Acronym for Invaluable Canines, Overcoming People's Emotions and Disabilities. iCoat at gmail.com.
Aww.
And I would just tell people, don't be shy. Just send me an email. I'd love to talk to anybody and everybody. As you can tell, they cured my cancer, but I don't think they'll ever cure my diarrhea of the mouth.
I noticed. No, we're the same.
If you can't, if you can't laugh at yourself, how can you laugh at anything else in life?
Exactly. Well, this was lovely. As Corey says, I would love to call this to be continued.
Yes.
But we're going to continue on with the show. So thank you so much for being here.
I would say ciao, but instead I'll say Labrador Retriever.
Labrador Retriever.
Labrador. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Oh, that was nice. So we have our next guest behind the scenes. It's like I try my best to keep us on point. Rebecca, you can just give me a thumbs up if you were ready and you can hear us. Awesome. We'll bring you up to stage.
Hello.
Okay, we're gonna shake it off. Sometimes there's so much that goes on in these conversations. Our emotions go up and down, and we're everywhere. Learning about how people share their stories and why they share it the way that they share it. So Rebecca, I've been playing with one of my favorite questions because right now I think I'm going to have to create a spreadsheet of everybody's answers and then find some patterns. It's really fun. So if there were 3 words that you would love other people to use to describe you, what might those 3 words be?
Oh, this is actually easy. I've done an exercise. In fact, I do an exercise with my clients, which is really about constructing their vision and showing up as the person we need to be to actualize that vision. We actually do this exercise as well, where we think about who do we need to be and become, hence my coaching program, Be and Become. Who do we need to be and become to rise to the life that we're hoping to achieve for ourselves? So for me, I would say my 3 biggest ones would be inspirational, wise, and empowering.
Ooh, I like like those. So inspirational, wise. I just want to make sure I'm writing them down. And empowering. So do tell us just a little bit more about how that weaves itself into this be and become type of work that you're doing.
So my biggest mission, whether I'm doing it with my students as an educator or I am mentoring my clients and coaching them so that they can reach new levels of themselves, I would say that these three words really, really epitomize my mission, which is really about tapping into all of the hidden gifts and talents and diversities of my clients. So I don't do coaching I don't do coaching in groups. I always do them one-on-one, and we really work to really kind of dig into their biggest strengths and talents that they didn't know they had, and actually leverage that into creating a purpose-driven life. So whether that is starting a new business, most of my clients, what they'll do is once they've overcome their mental health challenges, which is something that I work with them on as a peer support coach, they actually then will start a business either as a coach or in some other field where they're helping people get through what they've had to go through. So this is really about utilizing, actualizing our purpose, but also actualizing how we need to show up to that purpose. And a lot of that has to do with working with the natural gifts and talents that we already have that we may not have maximized yet, or perhaps there's a lot of negative stories that have been told to these individuals that have stunted them from really maximizing their potential and being the most pronounced, highest version of who they truly are.
I love that you brought up both of those things, because yesterday we were talking with Sherry, and that's the good conversation that came up, was your skills that are so good for you tend to be those things that we don't even know we have. They come so naturally, we don't think about them. And so then
Absolutely.
we need that exterior perception that goes, but you're badass at this. And you're like, I thought everybody could do that. No, everybody cannot do that. That's just you. Please help us. And then the other side of that was, I don't remember now, that went away, but that's fine. Let's start there. How do you help people really hone in on those skills they don't even know that they have?
So one of the things that I'm really, really good at is seeing people's light. That's something I've always been good at. And that's actually why I got into educating. That's why I got into consulting. I'm very good at seeing the best in people. It's just always been a talent of mine. And I find that there's so many different ways to see somebody's talents, whether it's something that they were born with. So for example, my last client, she's just incredibly funny. She has this way of turning her mental health issues and struggles into comedy. And that was something she didn't realize she was doing. Every time we would have a session, you know, she would be talking about something she's dealing with and struggling with, and yet she would find some way to kind of turn it around and make it comedic. And so I had to tell her, I was like, well, have you ever tried comedy? Because I think you would be a really good fit for it. And now she does stand up on a regular basis. I have another client. Yeah, I have another client as well. So it could be personality traits. One thing that I do as a practical exercise is I'll ask my clients to write down their story of past, present, and future. And in those stories, we kind of disseminate, okay, what were the most empowering traits that I was exhibiting when I was at a really good place in my life? So, you know, looking at the past, are there any milestone moments where you felt particularly lit up? So one of my biggest philosophies is, if you ever want to get at the true essence of who you are, and this is something I've had to do from scratch. When I was going through my manic depressive episodes, my worst depressive episode left me with a complete isolation of who I thought I was. So I actually had to build myself and create myself from the ground up. And one of the ways that I did that is I followed my joy. So I look back on any of the moments that I truly felt excited for life. I truly felt inspired. Things were going naturally for me. So I really kind of get my clients to get into those headspaces of moments in their life where things were just easier, things flowed easier, things were exciting, they felt empowered in their skin. And that's something that I recognized in myself. I feel most empowered when I am helping to cultivate and nurture the potential of the people around me. And so that led me into teaching, which is something I do now. Which became a huge help in terms of my recovery because it gave me a sense of purpose and it gave me something that was fulfilling that made me want to stick to my recovery treatment plan. And I notice that this happens all the time when we actually get into those moments of when have I felt joyful? What was I doing at the time? And who was I at that time? And this is a really great marker for finding out. I always say if something is joyful for you, if something is enlightening for you, then it was made for you. And if it's giving you so much joy, that means it belongs to you and you should be looking to cultivate that joy on a regular basis. And so whether that's a vocation or a volunteer experience, or even just dabbling with some creative passions, that was always a big thing. I have another colleague actually, and she's gone through a lot of trauma and abuse, unfortunately. And I asked her, can you tell me a moment when you actually felt at peace? And she remembered a moment in art class where she was painting. And so I said, well, you should do that a little bit more. And so now she actually hosts art therapy workshops. And she's now certified to put on these art workshops so that people can process their trauma in a way that's constructive and creative. So I love seeing people grow, and I truly believe that when somebody is doing something that is authentic to them, it can be incredibly powerful, and the sky's the limit.
Well, and I love that you're speaking to the truth that everything we need is already inside of us. We don't have to look outside of us to go get this new course, this new certification, right? We just have to rediscover the truth of who we are and the passions. And so that's beautiful. I love it.
I got so excited when you said the word finding your joy, because that is exactly what I did. I went through some PTSD. And then because of that, I fell into a deep depression, and I got to the point where I was thinking of suicidal thoughts again. And the time in high school when that did happen and I had those actions, I was like, I'm never coming back to this place. So I got to that place and I was planning, and I'm like, look, I promised myself I would never do this. So I spent every penny, except for one, literally, that I had to go to a retreat. And when I came back, I had enough foundational support that I could say that to myself. Well, I'm allowed to be here. What is it that brings me joy? How did I used to react to high emotional moments where I could bring in those things that made me feel better before? And it was painting, and it was singing, and it was writing music, and it was being in nature. So I started doing those again, because I knew that those were those tiny moments of joy that I could follow. And I didn't know where they'd lead, but I could follow them, knowing it would take me to a better place than where I was.
Well, and it speaks to the fact, Laura, that healing doesn't have to be heavy and arduous and this thing, right? It can be light, it can be fun, right? It can be full of joy, and just flow with grace and ease. It doesn't always have to be the dark night of the soul.
And I can definitely back that up. I always say that, when I was going through my own depression, I was so desperate to get better, and I was being completely inundated with all these different wellness coping mechanisms, books, podcasts. People just, flooded me with these wellness tools. And it was so overwhelming. And I felt like a lot of my clients where they feel like they're failing at wellness. And that's not what wellness is supposed to feel like. So it should definitely be fun, and it should definitely be joyful, because if it wasn't, we wouldn't continue it. Even people who work out on a regular basis, the people who do it consistently do it because they love doing it, because they love the feeling after that workout. It becomes addictive almost. When you have those endorphins, you want to keep doing it. So I don't believe in a one size fits all wellness plan. And again, sometimes wellness could be in meditation. A lot of people are really, pushing that. Whereas for other people, meditation makes them even more anxious. And so it's important to have this breadth of tools, but also understand yourself at a core level and find what really does feel good for you. Some people creative, some people need to process, some people need to be in a quiet place, some people need to be in a loud space. So we really need to care for ourselves based on our own essence and our own needs and our own circumstances.
Well, and even understanding that if this modality of healing works for you right now when you're at this level, you might have maximized it, saturated, and so you're not moving forward anymore. So now what's the next thing for you? So just being open, right? That it's not a one fits all. And throughout your journey, it's going to shift, right? And so I think of it as that having that team approach to wellness, right? So how do you get your clients to be open to, I guess, seeking and receiving different types of alternative wellness for themselves and kind of have fun and play with it, right? So how do you achieve that with your clients, Rebecca?
So it's all about finding out, in essence, the blueprint of who somebody is. If I can tell that my client is a creative person, I'm not going to tell them who has ideas coming in all the time. Like a lot of, like some of my clients, including myself, who have bipolar, we happen to be very creative people and we happen to have very strong, passionate emotions. So knowing that as they are, maybe meditation won't work for them because they're just so lit up all the time that meditation wouldn't be a good fit. So it's really an understanding who this person is and understanding what are they getting joy from already. So understanding what is working for them already. So let's say, for example, I had a client, she was telling me that she felt bad because, somebody recommended that she take a walk because she was feeling amped up. And instead of taking a walk, she just sat under a tree. And she's like, oh, I just feel bad. I didn't do my walk. And I was like, well, did sitting under the tree feel good for you? And she'd be like, yeah, it really did. And I'm like, all right, so maybe if you really want to do this walk, maybe we can do a walk in a forest where there are those trees that you enjoy. Or it could be that we can use a wellness tool where you're sitting underneath that tree where you feel safe and you feel grounded. And we can do something else that's constructive, like reading a book on your condition while you're sitting under the tree. So it's really understanding what is accessible to them and what is already making them feel that way. So I don't dump wellness tools on my clients. What I will do is I will give them a kit of multiple coping mechanisms that have worked. I'll let them experiment with that. And then I always ask them to do a before and after. So how were you feeling before the coping mechanism? How were you feeling after the coping mechanism? Did you feel lighter? Did you feel more at peace? What were those emotions? And using that emotional feedback to encourage awareness and also get closer to, hey, this is a good, this shoe fits for me. So it's really about experimentation. It's really about being very in tune with our emotional feedback when we do these kinds of exercises so that we can see, hey, are we getting warmer or are we getting cooler? But most of my clients come to me because they've tried everything. And most of my clients, no, it's true. Most of my clients will tell me that they've gone through 3-4 therapists. And because I'm not a therapist and I'm a peer support coach, they're like, well, maybe I'll try something new. So they usually come to me because they understand that I have lived experience and I know where they're coming from. So that's really helpful as well. But generally, they are very open. I think the main thing, again, is trying to tailor those tools to who this person is. What are they passionate about? Where do they find peace? Where do they find joy? And we answer those questions very early on in our work together.
Mm-hmm. And I love your message about allowing them and actually giving them permission to say no to something that's been suggested if it doesn't resonate with them, to be to seek their own inner guidance and counsel based on how they feel. Because I feel like that's a huge obstacle for all of us, right? We feel that we have to live under the perspectives and projections of other people. And, oh, this is what's the big thing right now, like meditation or yoga or whatever. And so this is what we should be doing, and it has to be done this way. And if it's not in alignment with us, it's like we almost need somebody to give permission to say it's okay. Like, no, you don't have to do that. Why would you do that if it doesn't feel good? So I love that. That's the main message that comes through when you're dealing with your clients. So
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I've
I've been there too, right? I've been there too. Like I say, like I have that empathy where I was completely dumped with tons of wellness tools, and you would think that would make me feel better. It actually made me feel worse. Because I felt like I was doing it wrong. And there is no way of doing it wrong. And that's what people need to understand. It's like some spiritual coaches don't like when their clients go out dancing, for example. They're like, oh, that's a low vibration. And I'm like, why? If they enjoy dancing, maybe not to dance in a club. If, let's say, for example, they're trying to get over their attachment to alcohol or things in that environment that might be not good for them. But if that's something that gives joy, let's take that joy and put it into a positive environment. So if I'm dealing with a younger person, say, for example, she's in her mid-20s and she loves to party, but we also are concerned that maybe she'll get into bad crowds or bad influences, both substance and social, then let's take that joy and put it in an environment that's constructive and safe. So, for example, instead of going to the nightclub, why don't we go for a Zumba class? Or why don't we take up some form of dance? And then that way she's working on body and helping her body to be healthy, but she's also still doing what she loves. So there's always a way for us to inject the joy in an environment and in circumstance and in a modality that is nourishing and empowering on the individual.
One of my good friends actually signed us up for pole dancing a couple years ago. And I was like, I don't know. Do I have to wear like lingerie and heels? I can't. But then
I've done that. I did it for my birthday, actually. We did a flirty girl fitness on my birthday. You need some serious upper body strength for that stuff. I do not have the upper body strength.
I used to when I was little, like when I was 7 or 8, I was constantly on the pole and constantly on the jungle gym. Like my feet never touched the ground. So like I knew what to do, but my body could no longer do it. And so you're trying to be sexy and it's just not working. But now there's anybody else's. So, I mean, you're just with other people like you. It felt amazing. But it was something new that we tried together. So we had that camaraderie. Like I like to do things with other people. I'm not necessarily type to try it on my own, but yeah, just knowing exactly what you like. I was the person that had the 4 different therapists that tried 50 different modalities. And what I learned was every time I tried a different modality, I would learn something about myself. And I could take that into something else that I thought I might enjoy. But then there is that understanding that not everything fits for every person. And we've talked about meditation a lot too. Yeah. Just that whole understanding of, I'm going to sit cross-legged with my fingers and my arms. No. For me, meditation is belting out music. For me, meditation is sipping on, right now I have a smoothie hot chocolate because I'm lactose intolerant. Or it could be going for a walk in the woods. Like there's so many different ways that I can practice meditation, which is just awareness of the self, bringing myself back to the moment every single time.
Yeah. And cleaning your house too.
Or cleaning my house, putting the music on, dancing around while you're doing it.
It's like, just bring it into everyday life. It doesn't have to be a separate thing where you stop your life to go and meditate, right?
Yeah. Following that joy every single time.
Yeah. And it's like I say, it's also about like repeating what works. Like now at the stage that I'm at now, all of my wellness tools are almost part of my routine. So it's not wellness is not a separate task for me.
No.
It's a way of life. I always tell people, don't do wellness, be well. Because you can do wellness, you can keep doing wellness. Like I tried everything. Honestly, I tried acupuncture, I tried Reiki, I tried energy healing, I tried crystals, I tried all kinds, you name it. The laundry list of this billion-dollar industry is completely just endless. And so I always say, it's really about what is good for me, what makes me feel empowered, and how can I institute these tools and these experiences into my daily life so that it becomes part of me rather than just something that I have to do. Because we all have a ton of those, don't we?
Oh, yes. So is that your core message? Instead of trying to be or act with the health, but to be well? That's the word, well.
That's it. It's not about doing wellness. It's about being well. And I think a big part of it too is understanding that we're not human doings. We are human beings. Yes. And this is a big message I want to share to everyone, is that as a coach that is very much a proponent of anti-burnout, because I've been there and I've burned out multiple times, and it's so easy to burn out, especially when productivity can be as intoxicating as a drug. And I've been there, and productivity feels great until your body just crashes on you because you're not paying attention to your care, whether it's physical, emotional, psychological. If you're not caring for yourself, it's the highway to burnout. So I want everyone to realize that we need to be treating ourselves with compassion and curiosity and just looking to discover more of ourselves. There's no bad way of being, there's no wrong way of doing wellness. There's no wrong way of being a person. And all I really want is for everyone to be exactly as they are, at their highest version, at their most expressed, most empowered version of exactly who they are. Because once we are exactly who we are and we're living with authenticity and integrity, that's when the empowerment really comes in. And it actually doesn't even matter what we're doing. When we have that emotional inner empowerment saying that, hey, I know who I am, I know why I'm here, and I know I'm going to make a difference. And once we get that foundation, the wellness just comes, right? Because we naturally want to take care of our needs and wants when we know that we have a high sense of worth and we know that we're here for a reason.
So I have a question for you with regards to this self-compassion. So where in your own life have you struggled with compassion, and how did you shift that to move into that state of personal empowerment so that you now can take that message to your clients? Because we can't heal in others what we haven't healed in ourselves. So if you could share a story, that would be beautiful.
Oh, for sure. I can definitely say that my deepest, darkest hours where I went so low and into suicidal ideation, I even had a couple attempts. There was a time where I was even self-harming, which is very not like me. It was all stemming from a very, very pronounced self-hatred. And I had a very, very deep self-hatred in the worst times because I knew that I had potential. I knew that I was here for a reason. And I was so ashamed that I wasn't doing any of it and that I was stuck in this hospital, not using my potential, not using my passions. I suffered from a lot of brain fog because of the medications I was on, which made me feel stupid, which actually perpetuated my self-hatred, not to mention other side effects where, for example, I was on olanzapine and it made me gain a bunch of weight and it screwed with my hormones. So now I'm fat, hairy, and stupid. All these things that I was seeing as I was believing them about myself. So there were many times where I had almost like a repetitive tape that went on in my mind, saying all these terrible things about myself. And I recognized that the more abuse I was putting on myself, the more the life around me mimicked those sentiments. So if I thought I was ugly, I would become ugly. I started getting facial hair because my hormones were all out of whack. I started to gain a bunch of weight. As soon as I started to realize that my self-hatred is actually driving me deeper into my rock bottom than anything else is. And there's nothing I can do about it from a treatment standpoint, because I'm getting the best treatment there is. I had great doctors, I had great therapy groups, I had everything you need to do well. And the one thing that was stopping me was me. That self-hatred is, like I say, it's like the darkness within becomes the darkness outside of us as well. So I very easily witnessed that the harder I was on myself, the harder life was on me too. If I felt like nobody liked me, next thing you know, I would be doing things that would make it difficult to like me. So I've definitely walked the path of the self-hatred. And I'll tell you, so for me, it was all about changing that thought pattern. I had to break the cycle in my mind. So one way that I do this is through cognitive behavioral therapy. So I really worked with a lot of thought patterns that were going through my mind. And then I also recognized that I am teachable and I am malleable. So anything that I don't like about myself can be changed. And so I learned some amazing personal development tools that can help me change my behaviors and my habits so that my reality gives me the permission to feel good about myself. And when I feel good about myself, life is good to me too. So I truly believe that our perception, our relationship with ourselves will actually create a direct reflection in our lives. So if we love ourselves, we're more likely to be loved by others. If we feel that we are beautiful, more people will see the beauty in us as well. So I truly, truly believe that. I really, truly believe that. Our relationship with ourselves will always manifest our reality, always.
We were talking about our thoughts when we look in the mirror earlier, and I told a story about my daughter when she was 4. I heard her crying from the bathroom one day. So of course I go running and I see her and I'm like, what's wrong? She was looking in the mirror. She's like, I'm just so pretty.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad they're happy tears. That's good.
So then I want to know, since we're talking about all of this, what were some of your thoughts when you used to look in a mirror? And then what are your thoughts now?
That's a great question. So I think the biggest thing that was probably the most harmful thing that I could have said to myself in that time period was, I am stupid and I'm disabled. Those were the two biggest, most painful messages, because I am an incredibly independent, empowered person. If I want something, I will work and do what I need to do to get it. I didn't come from wealthy parents. In fact, I lost my father when I was 15. So anything that I wanted, I had to get for myself. I remember studying and working part-time jobs. I was always working and studying. So the feeling of being disabled and having to pick up disability checks because I couldn't pay for my own bills and I couldn't work, that was very disempowering to me. The fact that my mother had to make me lunches before going to therapy group, the fact that I was still living at my mom's house into my 30s, there was so much shame that came with that. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people in their 30s really do still live with their parents, and it's not through any fault of their own. A lot of it is because of this housing market, which is insane. So there's a lot of shame there. And I can say that now when I look in the mirror, I see someone who is capable. I see someone who is unstoppable, because throughout every challenge that I've had, I've always remained unstoppable. And that was just a commitment that I've made to myself, that no matter what happens, I'm going to be there for myself, and I'm going to make whatever I need to make happen for me and for me alone.
I will just let you know that yawning for me is emotional processing. It has nothing to do with you being boring. was like, it's been a day of emotions, and I love hearing people's stories, but then I start yawning because I process as they're processing, and I'm like, no, I'm not bored, I promise.
No, not at all. Did that answer your question? I'm just hoping I'm answering everything all right.
Yes.
Oh no, you just be you. That's all we need from you.
Yeah, it's I do believe it's definitely a change of mindset, but it's also a change of action as well.
Yes.
So I don't believe that you can think yourself wealthy or think yourself anywhere. The action needs to be there. The practice needs to be there. So I did definitely get into affirmations. I created a system where every day I write down my wins, and that was really helpful. So when I was in my deepest, darkest depression, I would wake up and do gratitude, and then I would end the day with what are my wins for today. So even if it's something as simple as I got out of bed today and I made breakfast and I brushed my teeth. Like at one point in my life, that was like a winning day. If I
can resonate with that.
The next biggest thing, it's like the ante of success really had to be relative to my treatment and my state of being at the time. So I really made a point to always acknowledge my wins, because I knew that I wasn't going to get appreciation or praise from anybody. I had to give it to myself.
That's something that I've struggled with. Over the past 3 years, I've done deep dive in my spiritual journey. I have been through months of the dark nights of the soul, and multiple times. And there were days exactly just like that, Rebecca, where I would just get up, I'd start with prayer, I'd start with gratitude. I would do whatever I could to shift that heavy negative feeling. And if it still didn't go, I would just say, what is one thing that I can do today? One tiny small thing to move forward. And sometimes that was just getting up and taking a shower. Sometimes that was just getting up and doing the dishes. And then that was it. That's all I could handle for that day. But just putting something into action, right? And following through with that small action and being okay with this is where I am today. Tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow will be better. So definitely resonate with that. And then the success. So one of my coaches, Rosalind Fung, actually helped me tap into celebrating myself, because that's something that when you don't feel worthy, you don't celebrate yourself. You're very happy to celebrate everybody else. You're very happy to see all the goodness in everybody else, help them with their issues, see their light, help them amplify their light. But to do that, to turn that on yourself is just such a foreign concept, and actually can seem repulsive at times, right? Because it's like, no, that's not truth. That's not truth. And so it has taken me a few years, but now I'm in that space where I am able to celebrate myself. I mean, not always in such a big, huge way, but in the small, intimate way. Yeah. But
that's
it's
great. I'm happy you're there. It's important. Yeah, it's so important. And it's weird too, how I find as well, like in our society, certain types of people are a lot more encouraged to celebrate their successes than others. Like I do notice that men are generally more encouraged to speak about their accomplishments more than women. I find that sometimes that happens where a man is like, well, this is what I've accomplished. And, it's all about showing off his power. When a woman does it, it's like, oh, well, she's just bragging, or she's not being feminine in the sense of, kind of keeping her modesty alive, right? Modesty has always been a feminine trait that we encourage in society. So this is something that I've seen, is that certain types of people somehow get more of the go ahead to celebrate themselves. I know for myself, my parents, in their culture, talking about yourself was very poor taste. It was very poor taste to talk about yourself. In fact, I actually grew up, I'm Spanish Moroccan, and we believe in the evil eye. And my mom's a big believer in this evil eye. And she would actually warn me not to talk about my achievements or my accomplishments for fear that I was going to get negative energy out of envy, even from the people that are around me and that love me. So it was very much conditioned for me to really keep mum about what was going well, but I definitely didn't hear the end of it when things were not going well. So this is really something that we need to shift and change, and recognizing that our celebrations don't need to be boastful. They need to be joyful, and we have to kind of shift this comparison that's happening so much in our world and say, I'm happy that Stacey Lynn is celebrating herself. You know, I'm happy that Laura is celebrating herself. I want to celebrate them too. You know, let's all party together and celebrate each other together. And so this way we uplift each other while uplifting ourselves. And that's the kind of shift that we need on a social and on a professional and personal level, for sure.
So I know you only have a few minutes left, and I want to be very mindful of your time and ours. So before we go further, I just want to know where we can find you and your favorite way to communicate, and then we'll continue with whatever time we have left.
Sure. So you could always find out more about the Be and Become process, along with a bio of me and some other information, just at beandbecomecoaching.com. So be as in be yourself, and becomecoaching.com. I can just put it in the chat as well.
Oh, that would be great.
And actually, I'm going to be renovating my site. I'm actually expanding my site as well, but this is the one that I have currently. And you can always find me on Instagram. I always post some really great coping strategies and words of wisdom on Instagram. So you can very easily find me on Instagram. It's just the first letter of, there you go, perfect. So it's just the first letter of my name, R, and then my last name, Bitton, Bitton. So this is my Instagram handle. You can always see some, I also offer free mental health resources on my Instagram page. So some things that you can try out for yourself. Let me know how it works for you. And you can always find me there, either on Instagram or on my website. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, and Facebook. Yeah. So I'm pretty much everywhere. I also do a room on Clubhouse as well. So I have a community called the Be and Become community on Clubhouse, and we do amazing discussions every week on Saturdays. So if you want to catch up and get involved with this incredible, empowering community, I definitely recommend it. Again, it's just Be and Become. You can search it on Clubhouse and join our house and interact with some pretty amazing people.
I used to be on Clubhouse for probably 3 hours a day. So then I quit Clubhouse.
Yeah, it's addicting. It's addicting.
I know. So we have about 2 minutes left. Is there anything that you needed to share with the audience before you go?
I would say the biggest thing I want to share is just remember to always be proud of yourself. Even I feel like there's so much going on where people are trying to really push themselves to improve. And I just want everyone to remember that it's actually been proven that the best way for us to be motivated and consistent with our self-improvement and evolution is through mindfulness and through compassion. So please stop being anybody that you're not. Please stop listening to people's advice if it doesn't feel good for you. And really, really celebrate who you are, because you're exactly who you need to be and you're exactly where you need to be.
Oh, I love that you ended with that, because that's exactly what we want to showcase in this show. It's like, look, you're you, celebrate that. And the way that you like to do things isn't necessarily the way that somebody else likes to do things. So if you love to write, you go and write. If you love to be on a stage, you go and be on a stage. If you want to share your message in other ways, go do that. Don't allow somebody else to say the only way for you to be successful is to be on a stage or to write a book or to be on podcasts. If that's not for you, that's not for you, and that's okay.
It's about owning your uniqueness, right?
Exactly. So I love that you brought that up. So Rebecca, I do want to say thank you so much for joining us, and I am making sure that hard cutoff is 2:00. So thank you so much. And
thank you so much to the both of you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks again.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
There. Okay. So end of the day, We're shaking it off again. About a minute or so. What was something that stood out to you? And I'm sorry, I just called you Stacy. I'm assuming your name is Stacy Lynn. Like
Stacey Lynn.
together. Stacy Lynn. Okay. So what was something that stood out to you today, Stacy Lynn?
Just so many heart-centered people, heart-centered coaches. People have this heart-centered mission. But the thing that really stood out to me is the common thread that ran through them all is just the importance of going within and honoring your truth with whatever it is you're doing or whatever it is you're going through. Like even when you're going through therapy and you're going through your coaching and you're trying on different healing modalities, honoring the truth of your soul, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. If you're shifting identities, honoring the truth of that identity and taking in things that people, places, circumstances, opportunities, and measuring against that identity, right? And that truth of purpose before you say yes to it. Is it in alignment or not in alignment? So there was this very common thread of always working to come back home to center, right? And honor your truth. And when we do that, that's when the doors of opportunity open. That's when things start to flow with more ease and more grace. That's when we step into that place of empowerment. So that's the biggest thing. And I found that it flowed throughout all of our guests today. So just a beautiful message that's resonating, I think, in the collective consciousness right now, because it just seems to be coming through all different modalities.
Definitely. I did love how meditation kept coming up, but really what resonated most with me was courage. And it's just like the world right now is just throwing that at me the last few days. Remember to be courageous. Remember that in order for not just me, but all of us to move forward, it means sliding into the unknown. It means getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, getting familiar with the unfamiliar. I used to write a question. We were talking about mirrors. I had this question on my mirror. How can I make the unfamiliar more familiar? So when I would look in the mirror and I'd be like, damn, those curves every morning, I would also see that question. And it would just remind me there's going to be things that I'm going to be afraid of today that are unfamiliar to me. How can I make the unfamiliar more familiar?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that.
So I will leave everybody on that note. And as a reminder, we are back every day this week. So from 11 a.m. Atlantic to 2 p.m. Atlantic. Since I'm on the east coast of Canada, we have 1 more hour than the U.S. There's actually 2 more time zones in Canada than there is in the U.S. And that is 10 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern. So same bat channel, same bat time. We will see you again tomorrow. And I'm just going to double check who we have first. We have Lisa Schermerhorn. And who's joining me? I think Beth is joining me as my co-host for a little bit.
And this was a joy for me. So thank you for having me as your co-host. Love to do this again. This was, I love having these types of conversations where we just sit together and we're real and we talk about the evolution of our being, right? And what that looks like. And it just gives that state of presence and permission for people to step into their authenticity and know that they don't have to be anything more than who they are in this moment. And that in itself is beautiful.
I'm going to go out as who I am, which is singing and dancing as I press the end stream button. So we'll see you guys. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Press